Here and here we go.
Okay. All right. Hi, guys. Yeah, we're going to have 3 hours together today. So I always respect anybody who on a Saturday morning wants to sign up for something that lasts 3 hours, and to have it be Social Security. You guys, I'm in awe of you. As far as the questions go and what this morning is going to look like, there are like 3 different topics that I'm going to address. So I'm going to stop after each topic. And as Carla said, please write your question in the chat room. So if I don't get to those questions, Carla can send them to me and I can answer, and we can distribute them to everybody on the call today. That's really important. While I'm kind of doing my introduction, if you guys would pull up the PowerPoint, I think it will help your brain to kind of see what I'm talking about, because Social Security is not hard. It just has a lot of detail. And I think if you could follow along on the PowerPoint, that would be great. So I'm going to kind of stall my introduction a little bit to make sure that you guys have that pulled up. Just a little bit about myself. I am the Chief Operating Officer at a nonprofit here in Texas called Imagine Enterprises. I have been with the company almost 22 years, and I have had the joy and pleasure of working with Carla for a very long time. I'm not going to date us, but Carla is just fabulous at what she does. And my expertise, and I've done it since like 1984, is to really help people with disabilities be a part of their community. I've done supported employment, I've done supported housing. I managed group homes for kids who had autism up in Alaska. But for the last 21 years, my focus has really been on helping people with disabilities go to work and understanding the impact of their benefits. That also includes working with transition age youth. And because today is being sponsored by TWC, I am going to spend the last little bit of time talking about VR for your students when they hit a transition age. So this is going to be detailed. I'm going to apologize in advance, but it's such important information. What I will do is I get to slides that are super, super important that you remember. I will remind you that this is a slide that you must dog ear or whatever they say, just keep up with, because it's got very important information on that. So with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the presentation, and I'm hoping that you guys have your presentation up.
All right, before you start, I'm going to drop the link for the presentation into the chat again, because I've gotten several private chats.
Okay, good, because I think it's going to help you stick with me, because I know what it's like to be talked at for 3 hours, and I'm not going to do that to you. I'd like to share what I'm seeing.
All right, Bethany, drop the link to the presentation again. Educators, we will drop the attendance link again, and we can also see who's here. So don't worry about that so much. We want to just make sure that the families, the educators, and anyone else that's here has access to the presentation at this particular time. All right, go ahead. Thank you, Sandy.
Okay, sure. So employment is very important in my life. I mean, it's been a part of everything I've done since 1984, helping people get real jobs in the community without fear. And one of the things I learned in the beginning, but I'm still dealing with it in 2022, is the lack of information and training on benefits, because benefits often stop family members or the person who receives a disability benefit from going to work because it's just too complicated. So I'm kind of hoping today to simplify the message and to give you guys resources. So maybe it's not so scary as you're thinking about employment or even self-employment for your student who has a disability. Because it is amazing when we get people who are able to go to work. So today I'm going to kind of discuss exactly what the Social Security Administration is, how it's made up, what it looks like, and what does that mean to you. I'm going to spend a good amount of time on what's called supplemental security income. I bet everybody here knows it as SSI. I'm going to look at other benefits, but I'm going to spend the majority of my time talking about SSI, how to get it, how to keep it, what happens when you go to work, and how Social Security views work with SSI. And then I'm also having a separate session on this next topic. But when your child turns 18, so many things happen as far as their eligibility and services through the Social Security Administration. So I'm going to briefly talk on it here, but there will be another separate section if you have a student who's about to turn 18, or even if you have a student who's in transition age but not 18, it's good for you to hear this information because there's so many myths and rumors out there that it's almost impossible for Imagine Enterprises to just go around to everybody in the state and talk to every single family. So the more people we educate, the more you can share your message with your support groups and your circle of support. So we're not really going to do a thumbs up or thumbs down, but these are things I really need to have you guys have ready when your student is ready to go to work. Okay. We do this in a class through VR called vocational rehabilitation, where we go into classrooms and we teach students to be ready and to think about what their future looks like for employment. So we do a lot of thumbs up and down with them since COVID because we aren't able to go into a lot of the classrooms. So I kind of like the idea. So be thinking about, does your student have a picture ID? And if your student is ready to graduate high school, their school ID no longer counts. So you'd have to get them a state ID, if not a driver's license. I am sorry for my voice. We got a dog for Christmas and I'm taking it outside and my allergies and the dog are not mixing. So, but you have to have a picture ID to go to work. The other thing you need to have is an original Social Security card, not just know the number. So those are just kind of housekeeping things for you to be thinking about if the school is starting to talk to you about getting your student a job, or someone's talking to you, or you're thinking about your student getting a job. Those are two very necessary tools that they must have. So what is the Social Security Administration? You know, we all recognize the Social Security card. We all recognize their emblem, but Social Security offers cash benefits. They offer health insurance. They don't specifically give you health insurance, but you qualify for health insurance based on your cash benefits, based on that eligibility status. And with that health insurance comes some long-term care services. Now, in the state of Texas, I know the waiting list is super duper long. And so you may want to get your child on a waiting list for things called consumer-directed services, the CLASS program. All of these long-term care supports are eligible to your child that is eligible for Medicaid. Okay, so those are also things that you're going to want to look at. Now, I said Social Security has cash benefits. Now, there are a lot of cash benefits, and this is where it gets confusing, so you may want to pay attention here, okay? There are two different titles. You'll see in red with the umbrella, there's Title II, and then off to the side, you'll see Title 16. We're going to talk about Title II now, kind of in a little bit of detail, because we're not going to spend a lot of time on it throughout the presentation, but you do need to be aware of it. So Title II is like something I pay into with my FICA tax. I'm paying into my retirement. So at some age, I'm going to be able to retire. I think my retirement age is 67 and 8 months or something like that. But I'm going to retire eventually, and hopefully I will get a Title II check because I'm retired. There are also some occasions to where a father or a husband with young kids paid into the system, or a mother paid into the system, and they're eligible, but they pass away. And so you can receive survivor's benefits off of somebody who has worked and paid in FICA. That's survivor's benefits. If you are a parent with a child under the age of 16 and your spouse passes away, you can get what's called child in care. So that's another cash benefit. But we're going to focus more on the disability cash benefits. And don't worry about those acronyms. We're going to talk about the first two. Again, we're not going to talk about the last one, the DWB, because that's disabled widowers benefits. And I don't think your students need to worry about that right now. But we are going to talk about SSDI, because SSDI stands for Social Security Disability Insurance. You don't have to worry about writing this down. There's a slide on it. But that means your student went to work and they paid in enough credits to be eligible for a Title II check based on their work record. CDB, Childhood Disability Beneficiary. Again, you don't have to write it down. There's a slide. That just means that mom or dad went to work. They became an insured worker under Title II, meaning they paid in enough FICA. But they have a child with a disability, okay, who is single, unmarried. We're going to go over the details of that later. But what I want you to hear me say, for retirement, for survivors, for child in care, and for all of the disability benefits I discussed, there was an insured worker, meaning somebody paid in the FICA tax, and they paid in enough that they were eligible. So Title II is an entitlement program. It's not welfare. Somebody paid in. Bill Gates will get a Title II check when he retires. Now his check will be bigger than mine because he paid in more FICA tax than I did, okay? And then there's Title 16, and this is kind of where we're going to sit for the next 3 hours. Title 16, or Supplemental Security Income, is best known as SSI. There is no umbrella of programs. Title 16 is simply SSI. But when you're talking to Social Security, they often refer to things as Title II and Title 16. So that's why I gave you the information on the slide. Not to make your brain implode, but just so when you're talking to Social Security, you kind of have their language, okay? But we common folks on the street just call it SSI, and that's kind of where we're going to stay for a while. So SSI, you're not going to hear me talk about people paying in to the system so that they become entitled for it, because SSI used to be the welfare program. So you have to have limited income and limited resources. And we're going to talk about that. So please don't worry about writing as fast as I'm talking, because it's just, I try to make my slides with enough words so that they're a resource to you when we're done. But SSI is paid for through the federal income tax. So our tax dollars are paying for the SSI. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. There's no insured worker here. There's just limited income and limited resources. Because it's limited income and limited resources, how much you earn has a cap to it, okay? Meaning the most your SSI check can be. So in Texas, well, in the United States, the most your SSI check can be in 2022 is $841. Now you notice I have an asterisk there. Because it's a needs-based program, they look at how much assistance that you're getting, okay? Is somebody else helping you pay for your food and shelter? So there's something called an eligible couple, where the husband and the wife are both eligible for SSI. They're both not going to get $841 because Social Security believes that an eligible couple can live cheaper than one. So the most that they're going to get is $1,261. Okay, parents, this is where you have to listen up, okay? This one's important. When you have a child who's on SSI, who's over age 18, if they do not pay their fair share of rent and food, Social Security will reduce their SSI check by 1/3 because somebody else is paying for their rent and food. So you need to charge them rent, and we can field questions on that. We can talk about that more as I get into the slides. But the most somebody who's over the age of 18 and not paying towards their food and shelter is $560.67. It's really easy. Charge your guys some rent and food. I'll tell you how to do that later. Give Social Security the receipt and they will fix the machine and increase the check to $841. But it's very important when your student is over the age of 18 and on SSI that they are actually contributing. Okay. I'm not going to spend much time on this because I already did. That Title II, the umbrella program, the Social Security disability benefits, they again are paid because somebody in that family or themselves paid in enough FICA tax so that they are an insured worker. So Title II is a entitlement program. For health insurance, with SSI in the state of Texas, Medicaid is automatic. I am eligible for SSI. I am eligible for Medicaid. I don't have to do a separate application. I don't have to do a spend down. So if you guys have lived in other states, you might have had to address that before. In the state of Texas, it's automatic. You get SSI, you get Medicaid. Okay. For Title II recipients, that's all of those entitlement programs that I talked to you about under the umbrella, you get Medicare. Okay. And Medicare pays about 80%, and there's a 2-year waiting list to get Medicare once you're found eligible for SSI, or for Title II. Now you'll also see Texas and feds there. The state of Texas runs the Medicaid program. The feds run Medicare. So Medicare is far more structured. It's far more predictable. And when you know Medicare, you know Medicare. But when you've seen Medicaid, you've seen one Medicaid. There's probably, without even thinking, there's probably 8 different types of Medicaid that you can receive in the state of Texas. And the eligibility rules are different probably for each and every one of them. So I am going to give you resources to help you because I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to be real with you. Medicaid is ran by the state. Medicare is ran by the feds. So Medicare, no matter where you live, is going to be the same regardless of the state. These are just some examples of Medicaid and Medicare cards. So SSI, because it's needs-based program, meaning no one paid in for it, you are offered SSI to help pay for your food and shelter. That's why it's called supplemental security income and not Social Security income. It's supplemental because it's to supplement so you have sufficient food and shelter. It's a needs-based program. And again, with Medicaid, with SSI, you get Medicaid, Medicare with number 2. Okay. So we have learned that Social Security has at least 2 different programs that affect us. One we pay into, one we don't. One has Medicaid, one has Medicare. Now, you guys can write your questions in the chat room. I'm not going to stop yet, but I'm going to be stopping soon because this is important. Okay. I'm going to talk about what happens when your student turns 18. Okay. They're likely to become eligible. If you have been denied before, they're likely to become eligible because they don't count the parent's income and resources. Okay. So if they've never received it, now's the time to consider it. Okay. And if you received SSI when they were under the age of 18, there's adjustments that need to be made because they got SSI based on being a child. They have to go back, and we're going to talk about that in a few slides. So don't worry about writing all this down. I'm just kind of foreshadowing on what's coming. when they were on SSI as a child and they turn 18, there's still something you have to do. The SSI isn't going to automatically continue because they received it as a child. They have to be found eligible as an adult for that to continue. So if you've never received SSI before, okay, so you're just like, you know, my kids aren't really on benefits. I'm just on this call to kind of learn and figure out what's going on. That's great. I mean, that's wonderful. So you can apply for benefits online or by phone. And I put in person in parentheses because ever since the COVID and all the variants have hit, that's not really an option. But when you go online, you're going to see forms that need to be completed. And they really need to be completed with current and accurate information with as many adjectives, descriptives as you can come up with. Any assessments being done by doctors, counselors, schools, hospitals, you know, all of your medical records, your prescription history, all of that is so important. And information from the teachers and those at school who work with your student. And when a counselor, doctor, teacher, when anybody is writing a report or writing a summation for you to apply for your student, we always ask that they write the letter based on that student's worst day. Because everybody can have a good day. But because of whatever disability your student may have, how has that disability impacted their daily living on their worst day? I know that sounds awful, but Social Security needs to understand what the potential is. And so make it as clear and concise as possible. This is why I wanted you to have the PowerPoint too, because I have a lot of resources on here. Here's where you apply. Here's where you call to do it over the phone. Or if you want to try to get an appointment at the local office, I'm not sure because I haven't checked recently if they're actually taking appointments online. So if you ask me if they're doing that right now, I do not know that answer. Okay, so that's how you apply for benefits if you've never applied before. Now, let's say you were denied. This is where so many rumors and misinformation come up because, you know, let's say I have a child with a disability and it's a pretty significant disability, and my neighbor has a child with a disability and their child's disability isn't near as impactful as my child's, but she's on SSI and my child doesn't get it. So I don't know, I come up with all these thoughts that, you know, that's not fair. They're treating me differently. They just don't like it because XYZ, you know, fill in the blank, whatever. But, you know, I was denied and they weren't. And that's just not fair because my child has far more needs. Okay. So what are some of the reasons that they would be denied? Okay. So first of all, when a child with a disability is under the age of 18, what they take into consideration is not just simply what is the disability, because remember, SSI is needs-based. What they're looking for is anybody in this child's life able to contribute towards their food and shelter? So they take into consideration parental deeming. What income and what resources do the parents have? And they have this calculation chart where they take it into consideration and they do this calculation sheet and they determine what, if any, your child would be eligible for. So let's say my child got denied, even though the disability was more significant, because my husband and I have more income and resources than my neighbor, or vice versa. But you're usually denied when your child is under the age of 18 because the parents have too much money, too much income. Okay, so that's very, very important. Okay, so if you've been denied when the child turns 18, that's the time for you to go back in there and reapply. This is just kind of a public service announcement. When we are offering assistance to beneficiaries around the state of Texas, we always make sure that they're able to manage their benefits. And so we go to this website, yourtexasbenefits.com, and have them sign in and plug in their information so that they can manage their benefits online. It's very important. So the other thing we hear a lot about, and then we're getting really close to taking some questions, but what we really hear a lot about is, well, okay, I'm over 18, but now I have a job, and well, I can't apply because I'm working. Well, that's not kind of the way it works. When you apply for benefits, what Social Security looks at is, do you have a disability? Well, yes, okay, so you've proven you have a disability. And then their next question when you're an adult is, based on that disability, are you able to go out and earn enough countable income? And if you are, you're not going to be found eligible. But if not, you will be found eligible. And so you can work while you're applying. And so let's kind of look at this slide, okay? So eligibility is based on you having a disability that's going to last at least 12 consecutive months or result in death before the 12 months, okay? And that you have countable income. Notice I underlined countable, of $1,350, and that's gross. So if you're earning countable income below $1,350, you would still meet the eligibility for applying. Now, what do I mean by countable? Later on today, or this morning, I don't want to scare you that we're going to do this all day. Later on this morning, we're going to talk about some things that lower the countable income. But just as foreshadowing, do you pay for things related to your disability so you can go to work? Do you have the assistance of a job coach? Does your employer accommodate your disability to where you're not expected to do all of the things that your colleagues do, or maybe not as fast, or maybe not as many? Okay, so there are ways that Social Security takes into consideration your accommodations when determining how much of your income you're going to count. But you certainly can work before and during the application process. It's all about how much your monthly countable income is. Okay, so that is dispelling the myth that you can go to work. You can be working while you apply. Okay, now for those students who are on SSI before they turned 18, remember I talked about they have to be found eligible as an adult? Well, that's what this slide is about. Somewhere in your 18th year, parents are going to get a letter saying your student or your child may no longer be eligible for SSI, which is a very scary statement, may I say. But what they're just doing is they're saying, because your child is turning 18, they no longer fit the definition of a child's eligibility, because they're not going to ask a child, are you eligible to earn this amount of money, or we're going to find you not eligible. No, they don't expect a child to go to work. The child's definition for eligibility for SSI is more about, how does your disability affect your daily life, right? But when they turn 18, they need to transition to the adult definition of, how can you take your disability and go to work, and how much money can you earn? So if you don't go through this reapplication, and it's a reapplication, during their 18th birthday, their benefits will be stopped because they're no longer a child. Social Security is not stopping them because they want to, or because you didn't respond. They're stopping them because your child is now 18 and didn't reapply. Okay, so somewhere during the 18th birthday, your child will need to reapply for benefits. And it is a whole new reapplication. Okay, so just because your child has benefits before they're 18 doesn't guarantee they're going to keep them after the age of 18. Now, the likelihood is high because this is really, if their disability doesn't change, they're really just looking at, is your child working and how much are they earning? So it's nothing to be afraid of, but it's something that has to happen. So this is one of those golden star mark the page things. If your child is getting around 18 or on SSI, but not 18 yet, during their 18th birthday, you must reapply for benefits or they will be terminated and you will start the process all over again. And I know no one wants to start the application process all over again, especially once they've been found approved. Okay, a couple more slides and then we're going to take questions, Carla. So if you could be ready. Because SSI is needs-based, remember I said nobody pays into it, it's our tax dollars. And you have to have limited income, but you also have limited resources. Income is kind of what you get and resources is kind of what you got. Okay, so what do you have? And what's its value? Okay, and since Moses delivered the 10 commandments, this amount has not changed. The resource limit for an individual is $2,000. Now, what does a resource mean? Okay, all right, definitely you cannot have more than $2,000 in your bank account. All right, grandma cannot leave you $10,000. because that's more than $2,000 in your bank account. All right. But you can have one car, one house in your name and the property that's on the deed. So you can have a ranch with 100 acres as long as that's what was on the deed when you bought the ranch. You can have like a wedding ring, and I mean, there are what you can have this life insurance policy as long as it doesn't increase in value. So when I say countable resources, they do not count everything. All right. But it's pretty much one house and the property that's on the deed, one car of any value. They don't limit it to like a $3,000 car. But you definitely want to watch your bank account. Okay. So, and I'm going to give you a link to where you can get a list of the resources. Now, a lot of family members that I work with, they have a grandparent or the parents are trying to plan for their students' financial future, after they're no longer here. And they're worried about setting aside money because of this resource limit. So there's 3 resources that I'm going to give you right now, and then I'm going to give you a link to pursue them. Because although 3 hours sounds like a very long time, we don't have enough time to go through all of this and still have time to talk about Social Security. But when someone is on SSI, if they have other income, they can have what's called a plan to achieve self-support. And what that does is it allows them to set aside other income. They can't set aside SSI, but like if they have a job, they could set aside money towards reaching a work goal. Say they want to be a mechanic, a beautician, an accountant, small engine repair, a janitor. I mean, whatever they want to be. There's a plan that you can fill out, or that an expert can fill out, because I'm going to give you resources. But there's a plan where you can fill out where they can have a vocational goal, and any money they save into this PASS account is not counted. So their SSI still stays high. There's a special needs trust that requires an attorney. It helps you set aside money in a trust fund that is not counted towards SSI. And then there is an ABLE account, Achieving a Better Life Experience. And I think all 50 states now have an ABLE account. But under the SSI program, they'll disregard the first $100,000. And assets above $100,000 will then count as a resource, but you get to keep your Medicaid when it goes over $100,000. That's a heck of a lot more than $2,000. Okay, And so again, here's why it's important for you to have a copy of the slides. Here are the 3 links to help you learn more about what resources count and what resources don't. What is a PASS plan? What does it look like? What do I need to do? And then the Texas ABLE account. Although what I'd like you to do is just start at ABLE account. Don't clarify Texas, because you are able to use other states' plans. So you want to compare other states' plans to Texas. It's been a while, but the last I heard, I think Colorado, Ohio, possibly Minnesota had some pretty good ABLE accounts. So you want to compare and contrast if you decide to go the ABLE route. Okay, we have a colleague that we work with who has a disability, and he has an ABLE account, and he is saving up to buy a accommodated van. And he's getting really close. And he bought his first van using a PASS plan. So just wanted to let you know that there's actual stories out there of things that work. And Carla, this is the point where I'm going to stop and see if you guys have any questions.
There were a couple of questions, Sandy, in the chat. One of them is whether Social Security still looks at a parent's income after 18.
Okay, let me answer that one.
Okay.
No, that's why it's so important that on your child's 18th birthday, you know, they're going to wake up and they're still at your house. Nothing's really going to change. But in the eyes of Social Security, that child who was on SSI is now an adult, or that child who was denied SSI is now an adult, and suddenly they don't count your income and resources. They just go away. What they do count, and this is important, so everybody listen up. What they do count is if your student gets SSI, they have to pay their fair share of the rent or mortgage and edible food. I'm not talking laundry, detergent, dish soap, shampoo. I'm talking about edible food, food that they put in their body. And then you prove that by getting a receipt from them, giving it to Social Security. That way your check won't go down. But no, ma'am, they, or sir, sorry, don't know who asked that question, but they do not count your income and resources after the age of 18. So that's the time to reapply or start charging them rent when you do your age 18 redetermination.
All right. And then another question that we had was, what about an adult student who has autism or developmental disability was not recognized until young adulthood? So much from teacher input. Let's see. Not really sure what that part is that she put in the chat. It was a direct message. She said, so much from teacher input, in parentheses, we homeschooled due to ADHD. But the real question is, will the medical therapy note from the specialist likely be sufficient to validate eligible disability?
Yes, and because your child is over the age of 18, what you really want to talk about is how does the autism interfere with your student's ability to go to work, or your student may go to work, but how he's not able to earn, work so many hours, earn sufficient money. That's going back to that slide where you talk about the countable income, okay? And that again was on $1,350 of countable income. So if your student can't work or just maybe works a few hours, absolutely. The difference is he's not applying for SSI as a child, he's applying as an adult. So they're going to focus not so much on his autism and how significant that autism might play a role in his life. They're going to look at, given the fact that he has autism, what can he do for work? And so you're going to want, VR is a really good resource to write something up, saying, what their work restrictions are possibly due to their disability. But you're going to want to focus your application on, yes, what you said was good as far as those reports. But again, if he's going to any kind of specialist, what is your student's worst day? And I know that it's hard for me to ask. I hope it's not hard for you to hear, but we want Social Security to understand that this disability is playing a significant role in the student's life, and that's why we're asking for the benefit, or your adult student's life. Okay.
Very good. Now, if my son receives money from an inheritance and they don't direct it into the special needs trust, can my son just deposit it into his ABLE account and it won't affect his eligibility?
Yes, that answer is yes, 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 yes. And if you already have an ABLE account, I applaud you. That is just very, very good. Yes, because let's use a scenario where an ABLE account isn't present yet. Okay. Number one, start an ABLE account. Number two, get a special needs trust attorney. Okay. All I got to Google is attorneys who specialize in special needs trust, or start an ABLE account, because here's the way Social Security looks at it. Okay. So let's say grandma dies and she leaves me $10,000. The month I get $10,000, it's considered money. Okay. It's considered money. Still not going to get my SSI check for that month because I've got too much money. Okay. But after that 30 days, then anything remaining is counted as a resource, right? So I'm like way over resource. And when you're over resource, they take your check and your Medicaid. So when you've got to talk to anybody that you think is leaving your child anything, because it gets them into trouble really fast with all good intentions. So if you've got 30 days to dump that money into the ABLE account, that's great, because then he or she just has 1 month where she's not going to get the SSI check. But you're not going to go into this where they take the check and the resource. Okay.
Okay.
Now the good news is, sorry, Carla, but this
no, go ahead. No, keep going.
The good news is let's say there isn't an ABLE account. Okay. So somebody leaves you $10,000. Okay. If worst case scenario, you don't know how to spend that money, you can pay mortgage in advance. You can buy clothes. You can go spend that money, right? But if you cannot spend that money and you get to the second month where they take your SSI and your Medicaid, know that you're not terminated. Social Security gives you 12 months to spend that money down or to protect it in some kind of account. And once it's down below 2,000, you notify Social Security and your check will start. So you got 12 months to do that. Don't go 13, because they will terminate you on the 13th month. You got 12 months to spend that money down if you don't have a plan.
Okay. To ensure they don't look at parents' income, do we need to take the parent's name off the child's bank account after 18?
I think that's a fabulous idea. There isn't a rule, but I think it makes it clear. I do think, and Irma, you're on the call, so Irma, feel free to jump in, but it's my opinion that when the student turns 18, Social Security pretty much knows that. And if you are the legal guardian, you probably need to keep your name on the account, or a payee.
Correct, as a rep payee.
Yeah, if you're a rep payee, I would keep your name on the account because they know he's over 18.
Okay. Let's see. Countable income. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can you clarify that, please? About the parent name on the child's account.
Okay.
Sure. Like I have a child and he has a bank account and he's got a debit card and my name is on it because he's 12, right? So my name is on it. When he turns a certain age, I'm going to take my name off of it. The question was, when you have a student with a disability and they're either on SSI or you're applying and your name is still on your student's account and they're over the age of 18, will that confuse Social Security? Okay. And my answer was no, because Social Security knows they're 18. Although And here's the part that's important. If you are a legal guardian or a representative payee, meaning you're still responsible to Social Security for monitoring your student's money, then you need to keep your name on the account. But if your student is going to not have a rep payee or a legal guardian, take the name off. I mean, there's no reason to have it on. So, but really Social Security knows when somebody's 18. So I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Mr. Moore,
Understood.
okay.
And that bank account needed to stay below $2,000.
That bank account does need to stay below $2,000 if you are on SSI or you are applying for benefits.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
Very good. All right, countable income below 1,350 in 2022 year per month is what it says. Is that correct? I'm assuming
that
that's
is correct. That means they don't count everything. And really in a 3-hour training, I don't want to confuse you or overwhelm you. And so there's going to be a slide. I think it's the last slide. There's links to what's called a WIPA, W-I-P-A, Work Incentive Planning and Assistance. The acronym is WIPA. They will offer you and your family and your student benefits planning and an overview for free. So I don't want you to worry about countable income. What I want you to do is if your student is on a benefit and they go to work, you get a hold of the WIPA program. And don't take this on yourself. You guys have enough going on.
Okay. If the child turns 18 before they graduate high school, apply when turns 18 or when they graduate?
It's when they turn 18.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just on their, somewhere in their 18th year, they have to reapply for benefits as an adult, or it's a good time for them to apply if they've been denied or not applied in the past, because the parent's income and resource disappears. Doesn't matter their student status.
So my birthday is January the 18th, 2022. I turn 18 today. Sometime between now and January 7th of 2023, I need to make sure that I apply. Is that correct?
Yes. And
Okay.
they will notify you. They will notify you. I mean, it doesn't have to happen on your 18th birthday, so don't panic. But somewhere in the 18th year, what your job is to know when you get that letter, you respond. And really, I, as a parent, would probably check with them 6 months into my 18th year. So if my birthday was in January and I turned 18, I would probably be calling Social Security in June just to ask when they plan to start your student's age 18 redetermination.
Very good. What's the difference? Let's see. Does guardianship change anything?
I mean, guardianship. Okay. So guardianship for Social Security just means that they need to talk to you. What's really important for Social Security is the rep payee, because what they're saying is this person is not able to manage their money. So you, mom, dad, aunt, grandma, whoever, is their rep payee, and you will be sending us reports on their money. So being a rep payee is far more significant with Social Security than being the guardian.
Okay.
Irma, would you agree with that? Irma, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep calling on you, but she might not even be on. She didn't have to be
Yeah,
on.
she's there. She's there.
That is true. That is true. I
Okay.
do agree. Yes.
Irma is my colleague, so.
All right.
Okay.
And what is the difference between an ABLE account versus a special needs trust?
Ooh, okay. So first I'm going to preface this by saying I am not an expert in either, okay? But a special needs trust is done by an attorney who understands the SSI rules, and they set up the account so that money is set aside that the beneficiary does not have direct access to, and the money is earmarked to pay for things other than food and shelter, because remember, SSI is for food and shelter. So it can take them to Disneyland every year. It can buy them clothes. It can pay for their cable. It can buy them a car. It can pay for the car insurance. It can pay for their credit cards. It just cannot pay for their food and shelter. Now, an ABLE account is an account that you guys set up. You as a family set up. And you say, my student Sandy wants to save money to buy her first house, to go to school, to buy a car. I am just setting aside this money in an account. So one, you do it yourself. Two, you absolutely need an attorney to get it set up correctly. And you can have both.
Right. Does a joint account with my child affect her benefit, and will there be a balance limit?
Okay, one more time. I think I got it, but just one more time, please.
Does a joint account with my child affect her benefits, and will there be a balance limit?
Okay, so that's kind of a loaded question, because if your child is on Title II, one of those other benefits, the ones that were under the umbrella, doesn't matter because there's no resource limit. Remember, because that's an entitlement program. If your child is on SSI, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it, just because you will never be able to have more than $2,000 in that account. If your money and her money are both going in, how would Social Security monitor that? That could be a real, that could be a real can of worms.
Okay, last one, and then we'll give our families, I'm assuming a little bit of a break to
Yeah,
refresh
I'm
coffee.
pretty sure they're sick of my voice.
All right, it says my son had just over $2,000 in his bank account earlier this month due to an insurance payout. He owed the last 4 months of rent per our guardianship agreement. So we moved $1,600 into our parents' account. So he's now back under $2,000. Well, the fact that his account had more than $2,000 for a few days this month impact eligibility? Should we wait until February or March to apply to be safe?
Yeah, no, okay, so and I'm laughing because Social Security has very strict rules, right? Very strict rules. They have to, because they've got too many people, but they never apply them. I mean, so Social Security kind of does everything. They're busy. I'm not saying that they're lazy or that they don't know their job. I'm just saying that they're overwhelmed, especially during COVID. So I don't think they're going to notice a few days in there. And you can immediately show I paid this off. Technically, their rule says if you have over $2,000 on the first of the month, you are over resources. Irma, I'm sorry, you're going to regret signing on, but I have never seen a case where they took the check when within the week or two they had it spent down. Irma, have you ever seen that case?
No, I've only seen it until after they have it in the 30 days. That is correct.
Yeah,
Never seen
yeah.
it.
You are totally fine. So what you did was perfect. Okay.
Okay, Sandy, tell our families and educators and VR what next steps are.
Okay, so we're getting ready to now kind of go into, now your student is on benefits and goes to work. So what does that section look like? So let's take about 5 minutes just to stop hearing my voice. And I'm going to start talking again about 10:05. Okay, so go get a cup of coffee, go scream in the bathroom, whatever you need to do. And we'll see you at 10:05.
Sandy,
Yes.
and real quick before you leave.
Oh, I'm not leaving. I'm going to be here. I just want you guys to get away from me if you want to.
So I understand the $2,000 rule. So is that bank account being monitored some kind of way? And that's just the way I think.
Okay, so your personal bank account or a different, which bank account are you talking about?
The disability, the child with disability. Are
Okay.
their bank account being monitored to say that it's more than $2,000 in there?
Yeah, so you're talking about First Financial Bank, right? You're not talking about a special needs trust or anything. So what happens? Yeah, so what happens when you're on SSI? There's a lot of reporting, okay? And Social Security cannot look at your bank account every single month. But every 12 months, for the most part, and again, we're giving them leeway because they're busy, but what their rules say is every 12 months, they need to go in and reconcile your child's account. meaning they're going to ask you to come in or do a phone call or fill out some papers saying, is your child still working? Is your child still a student? Is your child still paying rent? Please submit the receipts. Is your child, and please submit the bank accounts for this year.
Okay.
So they kind of do an end of the year house cleaning, kind of cleaning up the books, because they cannot possibly do it every month. So you want to just be careful, kind of like the question before, get that money spent down, showing that you did it within a couple of weeks of it coming in. Okay.
Okay, then, thank you.
Sure. And I'm happy to take questions during break. I just wanted to give your ears a break. So.
All right. So for those that are taking a break, we will get back on in about 4 minutes.
And I need to, never mind.
All right, so during break, we had another question that came up. My child became effective for SSI on 11/1 of 2020, and we want to charge her rent. Do we need a rental agreement? If so, can it go back and collect? Can I go back, I'm assuming, and collect back rent to 11/1/2020, or would it need to be effective from today forward? We are her legal guardians, as she would not understand a contract she is signing.
Okay, that's a great question. First of all, yes, you want to charge her rent, and so Social Security looks at this a couple of different ways, and one is something called fair share. And so what fair share is, and I don't have a slide on this because it's not normally what I would put in my basic overview, but a fair share means that you take what your mortgage and your taxes are, okay, or your rent, and and what are your basic utilities, regardless of if you rent or buy, okay? So you add up those amounts. What is the monthly mortgage or rent? What are the monthly utilities? Now, I'm not talking about cable or any of that. I'm talking about electricity, gas, water, okay, sewage. I'm not talking about telephones. I'm not talking about any of that. So mortgage, rent, basic utilities, and your edible food for a month. So that kind of gives Social Security a baseline of how much you spend a month. And then you divide that number by the number of people who live in your house. It doesn't have to be family members. Maybe your daughter's boyfriend lives there, or the neighbor kid is moved in with you, or you foster care, or you just had a baby, or, it's just whoever lives at that address. You divide that amount, and that is the fair share. So that's one way of looking at it. But, if I live in Stephenville, and, you guys maybe live in Dallas or the Metroplex area, and your mortgage and rent are far more than mine because I live in Stephenville. And so when I do the calculation, the fair share would be lower than someone who lives in an economy where the rent is just really sky high, or your mortgage is really sky high. So you might do it, and maybe this child's fair share is $1,080. Well, they can't pay $1,080 because even if they get the most they can receive in SSI, it's $841. So then Social Security has another option that says, okay, so if you were to rent out your room with access to the laundry room and bathroom, what would be the going rate that you could charge for rent? And you could use that. And there also is a lawsuit that was brought before the Supreme Court, and they won in the state of Texas, that there is a cap on how much a parent can charge their child rent. I do not have that. So if you would write that in the chat room, I will find that law, because I can't even remember right now how much the amount was. Irma, do you happen to know that? Not sure Irma is here, but that's okay. But if you would just put in there, I certainly can send that out when I answer the other questions.
All
And you
right.
can see.
So I wrote a note that we'll see if we can find the law about the maximum amount
Now,
we can charge.
as far as going back, you know, you're asking to go back about a year, a little over a year. You would need to make arrangements with the local Social Security office and talk to the claims rep that's over your student's case. Because they'll let you go back, you know, 3 months, maybe 6 months, but you would need to negotiate how far they'll allow you to go back. But yes, you can go back.
Okay, I skipped one and I did not. We are, I think she's saying we have a custodial account for a 15-year-old. What is your recommendation on what we should do with that account? Special needs trust or able account? Which one would be the way to go?
Oh, yeah. God, I really don't want to give my opinion because I don't know your family's situation. One of the differences between a special needs trust, outside of what I've already said, I'm not going to repeat myself unless you need me to, but in a special needs trust, that money will go and stay with your child regardless of circumstance, right? Because it's being managed by an attorney or some entity. Okay, with the ABLE account, okay, with the ABLE account, when that person passes, that ABLE account money goes back to the state in which you had the ABLE account to pay for Medicaid expenses. So I like the ABLE account because it gives you more freedom and leeway, and it gives you a higher, you know, it gives you a pretty high resource limit of 100,000. I like the special needs trust because the money is already earmarked should something happen to you on how you want it spent for your child. That really is a personal decision. So it's kind of up to you. Do you want the ease of it, that you're in control of the plan? Or do you want the comfort of knowing a special needs trust is going to dictate how the money can and cannot be spent? I mean, that's kind of your call. I really don't want to give my opinion. I like them both. They both have a purpose.
All right, let's see. You mentioned to compare ABLE accounts, and we did get a clarification on the year for the previous question. So I think Sandy answered your question. It was 11/1 of 2021. So
Okay.
that one question you could potentially go back.
Yeah, you could go back to November if it was just a couple of months. If it's over like 6 months, that's a little dicey, but yeah, yours is not then with the year being 2021. Yes, you can go charge her back. What you need though is a simple receipt. It doesn't have to be anything big and professional, or you can just show the withdrawal from her account into your account. You just have to show proof that rent was paid.
Okay, you mentioned ABLE accounts across, to compare ABLE accounts across states. What might be some relative differences to take into consideration, meaning pros or cons in doing that comparison? I'm assuming they're referring to.
Okay, I'm going to be, I mean, full disclaimer, I have read about ABLE accounts and I know people who have had ABLE accounts. I have not written an ABLE account, nor have I went in and researched. But so I am not talking with authority here, okay? But I think some, and I think some of the ways that another state could be more lenient about accessing it, more lenient about who and how much can be put in at a time. But I am going to stop talking because I have no authority there. You're just going to have to maybe pull up Texas and, I don't know, Colorado and just compare what's the same and what's different.
Okay.
I am so sorry I'm not an expert in the ABLE account.
One of my questions is, I'm assuming, is the benefits if they're capable for a high function autism student. I think they may be referring to, are they eligible? Would their son or daughter be eligible if they are a high functioning student with autism? I'm not real sure.
No, I kind of get the question. And I mean, that's a maybe. I mean, it really is a maybe because as I said in my introduction, I managed 6 group homes with kids with autism, and then people with autism who lived at home. And yeah, there are people with autism who can go out and earn a lot of money. Where the difference comes in, and I don't mean to kind of be general, but where the difference is remember, they don't count all they earn. They look at countable income because they don't count certain things. So for instance, does your student drive themselves to work, or do they have a transportation expense? Does your student get any level of support from VR? Because that would, or would they have had a job coach, or are there accommodations on the job? So you just kind of have to look and look at it. Everything is so individualized, but there is a very real possibility that just because someone has autism doesn't make them eligible for benefits, because they are able to go out and earn a living. You know, I can think of 3 people with autism right now who work for Amazon, and Amazon pays a lot of money. And so, and you know, one of the guys drives. So yeah, he's not going to be found eligible to have his benefit.
Okay. Do we need to get rid of the custodial account for eligibility?
I'm not even sure what a custodial account is, if I'm honest with you. I'm not sure I understand what that means. Does that mean like it's a joint account with both of your names on it, and you pay for her things, or you monitor what she's buying? If that's the case, yes. She should have one account. And if she's under the age of 18, your name could be on it. But I guess I'm not understanding the difference between a custodial account and just your basic account that you would have in a bank.
And the person that entered the question, you can feel free to come off of mute and provide further clarity. If you choose to do that. We have a couple of more. Regarding rent, we have been advised the average is $350 to $450. Unfortunately, this is hard to keep the account below $2,000 per month, even with food and clothes. What about charging for a portion of utilities?
Oh, no, you're supposed to. No, yeah, it is not clothes. Now, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, it used to be food, shelter, and clothing. It is not clothes anymore. So what they're giving you money for is food and shelter. So when you're doing your, how much does my child owe me? You want to look at your mortgage or rent. You want to look at your edible food, and you want to use your basic utilities when figuring out how much she owes. Gas, electric, water, sewage, not internet, not phone, not cable.
Okay. Someone lost their internet and had to jump off and then come back in. So she was wondering when you were talking about the fair share, and I do want you guys to know that this is being recorded and we will make sure that you guys get it, but it's in reference to the fair share charging rent, which is how we come up with what we are currently charging our son for rent. But you mentioned Social Security had 2 ways to look at determining rent. I missed that discussion. Will it be on the transcript or full? So yes, it's recorded, but Sandy, if you want to go ahead and give her the response about the fair share.
Yeah, that's, so it sounds like you have the fair share. The other one that they have is if you were in your city to put an ad in the paper to rent out a room with access to bathroom, kitchen, and laundry, what would be the going rent rate that you could get for that? And so he could pay that amount. The other thing I said too is that there was a lawsuit where someone in Texas took it to the Supreme Court and won. And so Texas has a basic number that they can charge for rent, but I don't have that in my brain. And so I was going to look for that lawsuit with a simple explanation of it and send it out to you guys.
Perfect. When calculating rent, do you also include property taxes?
Yes. It's anything that keeps that house yours.
Does show the fair share, I'm assuming, matter if our rent is set in our guardianship agreement, $400 in parentheses per month.
Now, guardianship and Social Security are two different things. Social Security is more in tune to a representative payee because the person cannot manage their own money. So I am not going to go out on a limb and give you a definite answer. You would need somebody to look at your individual case. So I do not know that answer. And Irma, if you ever know any of these things I don't know, feel free to pop in.
So what I'm going to do, based on the transcript, that particular question, I mean, we definitely have some experts that could potentially address the guardianship agreement piece, and we'll make sure we send that to everybody.
And that might be a Debbie Wilkes question too. So
absolutely. Yep. And I was actually thinking Stephen Alaman as well.
Yeah.
If the home no longer has a mortgage, can a fair rent rate be determined based on the monthly payments prior to the payoff?
Or you could still use any insurances and taxes and that too, because you still pay that even when the house is paid off.
Perfect. We are caught up.
Okay, good. All right. You guys are great for a Saturday morning. You guys are involved. I am just so excited. So now we're going to spend the next section kind of talking about, okay, we're not going to talk about eligibility and getting on or reapplying. Now we're going to make assumptions that this person is on SSI. Okay. So let's say you get your child on SSI or your child is on SSI. You know, we work with a lot of school systems, and, you know, like I said, I've done this forever. And if I could only pick one part of my job, it would really be working with family and transition age youth so that the student is already thinking about work before they leave school. Because so often in some of our programs, we have like 3 different programs that offer assistance to people with disabilities. And in most of our programs, you know, we get somebody who's like 35, who's just now thinking about getting a job. And, you know, we don't want people to live in poverty. We don't want people to live, we want people to live their best lives. And so it's really kind of, you know, do you have a plan for your child to work? And, you know, maybe you're thinking, you know, Sandy, my child has way too much of a disability to go to work, but could they get involved in their community through volunteering or, you know, kind of just making, you know, just getting them out there. Okay. And so when you're thinking about work for your student, number one, it needs to start in the school. So make sure that your school has a plan to where work is on the agenda, because this is the time when school is an entitlement and you have these services to help you and your student figure out where their niche is. You know, what are they interested in? What do they like? What do they want to do? What will they do? What's their stamina? I mean, just all these questions. So make sure you kind of have a plan. And then we know it's scary because we know the fight, you know, the struggle is real to get on benefits. So the last thing you want to do is when you're finally on benefits is let your child go to work and earn money because what? I just got him on benefits. And so that's where you're going to work with some of our programs. You know, that's where I'm going to give you resources at the end to help you develop what's called a benefits plan, so that you and your student, everybody in your family knows what is going to happen to Sandy's benefits when she gets a job. What are the next steps? And having these free resources to you to help you. So we want to be really proactive and not reactive, even in reporting. You know, you want to understand the reporting of work. So just a plan is essential. Just like you're planning for what happens when you're not there, you know, we were talking about the ABLE and the special needs trust, you have to plan too when they're ready to make a significant life change, such as getting a job, okay? Or moving into their own apartment where they're not paying you rent anymore, they're paying a landlord rent. So there's big things coming for your students. So I want to just give you some basic facts. And number one is Social Security. When you're on SSI and go to work, they do not count every dollar that you earn. And I'm going to show you that in a math figure, so don't worry about it. And it always benefits you when you're on SSI to go to work, because you will always have more disposable income than if you just were on SSI and didn't work. And it's always imperative that you tell Social Security when you start work, when you stop work, when you increase hours, when you decrease hours, when any change is happening in regard to work. And I'm going to give you more details, so don't worry about writing on this. I try to give you slides that are really user-friendly for you. Okay, so countable income. We've talked about countable income. Social Security under SSI doesn't count all your income either, but they start at your gross wage and then they start taking things off. And that's what we're going to look at in the next few slides. Okay, so everybody that we're on the same page, I want to make sure that we're on SSI here. We're not talking about any of those Title II programs that were under the umbrella. We are talking about SSI only right now. Okay, so let's say that someone on SSI goes to work and every 2 weeks they gross $145. Okay, so you know, it's probably just a student starting out, working part-time, figuring out what he wants to do. So this student is earning $145 every 2 weeks. Well, that's $290 a month. Okay, so the gross income is $290, and that's where Social Security starts when determining how work affects their SSI. Okay, so when you're on SSI only, okay, when you're on SSI only, the first thing they do is they take that gross wage and they subtract $85. And then whatever that remaining sum is, they divide that in half. You keep $1, they take $1. Okay, they reduce your check in half. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so $290 was the gross monthly wage. We're going to subtract $85. We're going to divide it by 2. And so they're countable. Here we go. Here's your countable. Of the $290, Social Security will only count $102.50 when they're reducing your SSI check. Okay. So SSI, as I said earlier, the highest your SSI check can be in 2022 is $841. So I'm on SSI. I get a job. The countable income that we did on the previous slide shows that my countable income from the $290 is $102.50. I subtract that from the most my SSI check can be. So now my SSI check is $738.50. And I still have Medicaid. Okay. I usually was not going to stop here, but I want to get the basics before we move on. So Carla, are there any questions? Or if you have a question, please type it now.
Okay, just a second, Cindy, let me
Nope, we'll
pull
give them a
that
minute
up.
to see if anybody has a
There were a couple that had come through. We went back to some of the other
let's not go
information.
back.
Yeah, we're not right
let's-
now.
Yeah,
Let's
now
talk-
we'll get to it, but not
Mhm.
right now. I just want to talk about what I just did with the math. If
So,
everybody's clear.
The only question that I see that may have come forward since you've been talking about these slides is, does SSI do all the calculations, or is it a family's responsibility?
No, Social Security does the calculations, and we're going to talk about that. So that's a good question.
Okay.
And so before work, the student was getting $841, right, in SSI. But then he gets a job earning $290 a month. And so Now the SSI check is reduced by $102.50 after we did this calculation, right? 290 minus 85 divided by 2 is $102. So we subtracted that. So now this month's SSI check is going to be $738.50. Well, I've had people freak out. I've had family members freak out going, well, it's not $841. What are you doing? Well, if you think about it, yes, the check is no longer $841, but you also have to add in the income of $290. And again, it's gross, so we know there's taxes coming out of it, but not very much at $290. So the total usable income is $1,028.50. $1,028.50. That's more than $841. That's why we say it always benefits somebody on SSI to go to work, because even though the SSI check is reduced, there's more usable income money and they still have Medicaid. And that's important.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, I want you right now, I want you to just field me with questions and I'll tell you when I'm done taking questions.
Okay, so let's see. Does this change if you're a student?
Yes, stay tuned. This is just, I'm just doing pure raw math right now. Gross minus 85 divide by 2. I'm going to get into being a student here in a bit. I just want you to understand the general initial hardcore minus 85 divide by 2.
So for a student that does not have a job, they get the whole SSI amount.
Stay tuned. I'm not going to answer that yet because I'm going to answer that in a very positive way, by the way, for whoever asked that question. Don't be upset with me because the answer is all good. Okay.
But what if they are a student and working? Does that formula change?
Yes, it does. Please stay tuned. Right now, I just want you to understand the minus 85 divide by 2. Forget if they're a student or not.
So that divide by 2 part of the equation really allows someone actually gross higher than that $1,350 allowable income through work. True or yes?
No, because that $1,350 is only good for SSI when they're applying. So let's not go there. I'm going to move on. Okay. I'm going to move on because you guys are overthinking it. Okay. Right now, gross earnings, $290 minus 85 divide by 2. Of the $290 in monthly earnings, they're only counting 102. That $102.50 is subtracted from the highest your SSI check can be, which is $841 in 2022. So their revised check for SSI is $738.50. You take that the $738.50 revised SSI check, you add their job's gross earnings of $290. They have usable income of $1,028.50. Now, there are work incentives that allow you to earn more, and that's what you guys are asking about. So that's why I'm not answering, because we're going to get to that. Okay. So stay tuned. I'm going to move on. Oops, I just went the wrong way. I'm going to move on. Now, I am not going over this slide with you. This next 2 slides, I don't even want you to be freaked out by. Okay. Just here's what I want you to learn. Okay. It is possible to have SSI and one of those disability benefits that are under the umbrella. Okay. And that's all I'm going to say about it. When you have one of those disability benefits under Title II, the ones that were under the umbrella, it's not gross wages minus 85. Okay. Because that Title II check counts as unearned income. So you'll see up here that Sandy's getting 2 checks from Social Security. I'm getting this check because I paid in enough on my own credit, and I'm getting a check because I have SSI and I go to work. What they do is they take that 85. See, I've got this 20 and 65 in red. That equals 85, right? If there is, and this could even be child support. Anything other than earnings that this child receives, such as child support, falls under unearned income. So they minus 20 of that and 65 of your earned. That's all I want you to see. It's not just gross wages minus 85 because you've got another check coming in. Okay. This is for somebody who receives SSI and a Title II check or child support and earnings. Okay. That's why you need these experts that I'm going to refer you to. I'm just giving you a basic overview. I am not expecting you to learn this. This isn't hard. This is detailed, but there's a lot of different nuances under Social Security. Okay, so I just want you to know that if it's SSI only, there's no Title II check, there's no veterans check, there's no child support check, then it is minus 85. But if that child gets a second check, then it's they exclude $20 from that check and 65 from the SSI, from the earnings. Okay. I know that was a lot and you guys are like, God, I hate this woman. But it is kind of hard. Are there any questions from that? Because I'm ready to go ahead.
At that point, would they need to apply for Title II?
Okay, that's a great question. That is a great question. And we're going to talk about how someone becomes eligible for Title II here near the end. But Social Security actually does this very well because they get earnings reports not only from you, but they also get them from the employer and from the IRS. So Social Security is very aware when somebody is earning a wage and, you know, they're checking their credit. So oftentimes you will get a letter from Social Security that says you may be eligible for benefits on your own work record, or you may be eligible for benefits off of a parent's work record. So Social Security will actually tell you when you're eligible for Title II.
That was it, Sandy.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I want everybody to just kind of be still for a minute. We're not really taking a break. We're just going to kind of absorb the minus 85, divide by 2, and subtracting that from the most your SSI check can be in 2022, which is 841. Because when we are done taking a deep breath, we're going to come back and look at some ways that you can earn even more, such as when you're a student, which you guys are eager to talk about. That's what we're going to talk about next. So let's just take like 1 minute and just be still and okay with this, because this is a lot of information. Okay. So on your screen, you're going to see 4 different work incentives: a student earned income exclusion, an impairment related work expense, a blind work expense, and there's your plan for achieving self-support, that PASS plan I talked to you about earlier. So we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about these things. And from these things, when I'm done talking about a PASS, I will stop and I will ask if there are questions. So I'm going to go through all 4 of these work incentives. So if you have questions, start typing them in the chat box, okay, as I go. All right. So yeah, so you're on SSI and you're a student and I go to work. What happens? Does me being a student mean anything? And it means everything. And before I move forward, I am going to tell you that this is so important that one of my sessions that I'm doing later on this year is just on this work incentive, because it's this important. Today, I'm giving you a broad stroke about what the student earned income exclusion is. When you see it on the calendar for upcoming classes, we're going to dig deeper so that you guys will really understand this, okay? So when you're on SSI and you're a student, you can go and get a job and earn in a calendar year, January 1st through December 31st, you can gross $8,230, and Social Security will not reduce your SSI check by $1. So as a student, you can go out and earn over $8,000 in a calendar year and still keep your full SSI check. Okay. Now,
Sandy, let that one sink in for just a
Okay.
moment, because I think
Go
that's
back up.
I really think that's important.
this is the most important thing I'm going to say to you today if your child is on SSI and a student. Okay. That is gross earnings in a calendar year, January 1st through December 31st. And they won't touch your SSI. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper. What is this thing? So there are, of course, some rules. Okay, you have to be a student. Now, when you take my class that's coming up this year, I will define what a student is, because it's homeschooled, high school, college, trade school, homeschool. It covers a variety of things, but you have to be a student regularly attending. Okay, and you have to be under the age of 22. When you turn 22 on your birthday, not somewhere in the year of 22, on your birthday, when you turn 22, the student earned income exclusion stops. It's no longer eligible to you. Okay, so this is why when I said develop a plan, your student, while they're in school, they need to be figuring out where and what they're interested in doing for work and working, because Social Security is not going to probably count their wages. All right. Now, I remember when this took a large jump, it was probably about 12 years ago. So it was mind-blowing to me that Social Security in 2022 will not even count $1 of earnings, $8,230. I know adults who don't earn that much money in a year, right? Social Security says that we will exclude each month up to $2,040 a month in earnings before we start reducing your check. You can earn less, but we're not going to exclude more. So if I am a student and I have a job where I earn $2,540, the most they're going to exclude in that month is $2,040. They're not going to exclude. If I earn $5,000, they're not going to reduce. They're not going to do a monthly exclusion of $5,000. The most they'll exclude is up to $2,040. Now, $2,040 to a student who can work, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And it's over resources if you think about it, because remember, resources is $2,000. So this student needs to be spending that money, which is usually not a problem with students, okay? But there's an annual cap that I told you about, the $8,230. Well, if you do the math, if a student is working and earning over $2,000 a month, that student earned income exclusion program is only going to last a little over 4 months. And then the rest of the calendar year, they don't have it. So one of the things that the WIPA program, the people that I'm going to refer you to, who Imagine is also one, will help the student figure out how to work holidays, vacations, weekends, part-time, so that January through December, they will always have a monthly exclusion because they won't go over that calendar exclusion of $8,230. And this is the point where somebody says, well, how much is that? So I did the math for you. In parentheses, in 2022, if your student grosses no more than $685.83 a month, that SSI check will never be reduced because they will never hit that annual exclusion of $8,230. It comes to like $8,229 and some cents. So this is the time, folks. This is the time to get your student trying work. Trying work. Let them earn money. Now, how does Social Security know you're a student? I'm going to already hopefully catch you before you type that, okay? Number one, all you have to do is say, hi, my name is Sandy Hardy Smith. I am a student at Stephenville High School. Here's a picture of my badge. I got a job working at McDonald's. I start January 1st, and I get paid every 2 weeks, and I will submit my pay stubs. That's all it is. Oh, and here's my manager at McDonald's for you to call and verify my service. Here's the name and number of my counselor. So you just need to tell Social Security you're a student. You can actually just call them and send in your report card. And then they will ask you questions like, who can I reach at the school to prove that you're a student? Who is your manager at McDonald's? But Congress actually mandates Social Security to approve all student earned income exclusions as long as they meet the age range, the school requirements, and they're working. They're mandated to do it because Congress wants people working. Okay, you're not going to find anything better than the student earned income exclusion on anything I tell you today. Because let's look at our guy. He's earning $290 a month. Well, with student earned income exclusion, he's got no countable income because even before the minus 85 and divide by 2, it goes to 0. So he gets his SSI check of $841, and he gets his $290 in earnings. So he has $1,131 every month, as long as he's a student. Now, some of the questions I'm trying to think out of my mind so nobody asks me questions that I usually would say is, so, there's summer. There's no school in the summer in most schools. As long as the student's intention is to return to school after summer break, they get the student earned income exclusion over summer. Sorry, I had to take a drink. If a student is graduating high school, but plans to go on to a trade school, a college, a university, start taking classes, as long as they plan to go back to school when school starts again, they get to keep their student earned income exclusion, even though they graduated from high school. Now, sorry, I'm talking too fast. My throat can't keep up. Now, let's say I graduate high school and I have every intention of going to a trade school. When it comes time to do it, and I go and I talk to the school about signing up for this trade, I decide it's not for me. So even though when I graduated high school, I had every intention of going back to school, when I change my mind, that's when the student earned income exclusion stops. Okay, it's because I'm no longer a student. I'm not signing up to do this. I'm no longer a student. The student earned income exclusion goes away. Now, I'm going to back up the slides a little bit to this one. So let's say that we do get a student who earns $2,000 a month. And let's say they start in January, okay? They're going to use that, let's see, January, February, March, April. In May, they'll have maybe $60 left over, okay, to use as a student earned income exclusion. So they wouldn't get the full, $2,040, they would just get $60 because that's what's remaining of the annual cap. So starting in June through December, there is no student earned income exclusion. However, the following January, as long as the student's still under 22 and regularly attending some kind of school and working, he gets a whole new student earned income exclusion for that year. But there's always going to be an annual threshold that he cannot cross because it will stop until that calendar year is over. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop there, Carla, and see if there's any questions.
Okay. So you hadn't taken any questions in the last few minutes, correct?
In the last few minutes, right?
All right, let's see. One came in, and when you were first started talking about this topic, and it said, even if this over the $2,000 per month, this would be a summer break, they could be working more hours.
Yeah, what we really encourage people to do is to look at the annual, that $8,230, and try to use as much of it as they can during their summer breaks, Christmas breaks, that kind of time, weekends. Yeah, we try to not have them work on school days.
Okay, let's see here. I got a little off track with where we were. Let's see.
No, that's okay.
How does the person gain the 6 work credits before the age of 24?
Oh, somebody's reading ahead. Nope, 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 not going there. I'm going there later.
Okay. Does a post-high school transition center run by the school district count as school?
Well, it count, yes. I mean, as long as you're a student and you have to be attending so many hours, and I don't have that in my head right off the top of my head. So I would need to write that down, Carla, and I will get back to the team.
Yeah, so my response is, if are they enrolled in the post-high school transition program at that program in that school district? If they're enrolled, it counts as school.
Yeah, as long as they're enrolled, it counts. Now,
all right.
I'm going to tell you, those of you who do SEAL, that Summer Earn and Learn, that is a great opportunity for students to go to work and really try things out. I love the SEAL program. However, where schools let me down every year is they don't take into consideration which child is on SSI, because that's income. And it's not that it's going to count against their SSI check. We just need to let Social Security know they're a student to get the student earned income exclusion. It's a very easy process. And when SEAL is over, I'm really busy, because I'm busy telling all these Social Security offices that these are students and they cannot count it as an overpayment.
All right,
okay,
that's a very good point. And Sandy, thank you for saying that. That may be something that we draft a little blurb that I can send out to school districts as we prepare for summer Earn and Learn that's coming up in just a few months.
Yeah, so as parents, I want your child to participate in the SEAL program, the Summer Earn and Learn program. However, if they do and they're on SSI, you need to make sure that the local Social Security office, your claims representative, understands that your child is a student and is participating in this program. That way they will not count the wages because of the student earned income exclusion. That is so stinking important, because I really do spend about a month after Summer Earn and Learn is over, cleaning up cases.
All right, that's great. That's great information. Is there a monthly maximum SEIE?
Yes, SEIE is student earned income exclusion. And yes, your monthly maximum that they will exclude is $2,040 in 2022.
Okay.
And if you use that, your student earned income exclusion will not last all calendar year. It will last about 4 months. And on the 5th month, you'll have like $60 left of it. Because when the annual exclusion is used up, you can't have it again until the following January. And again, I'm going to do 3 hours on it here soon. So please, 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 if this is a topic, which it should be, that interests you, if your student's going to work, be in that session.
All right. And then for the pass, does it have to be a legal document, or can it be a simple write-up of their son or daughter's future?
Yep, I'm going to get to pass here in just a few minutes.
All right. High school student has a part-time job, but will turn 18 the January before graduation. How long before his birthday can he apply for benefits to begin after he turns 18.
Okay, one more time.
High school student
Mm-hmm,
has a part-time job,
mm-hmm,
will turn 18
mm-hmm.
the January before graduation.
Okay.
How long before his birthday can he apply for benefits to begin after he turns 18?
He cannot apply before he turns 18. He has to be 18, or it will kick the application out because in the computer, he's 17, which he is. So you cannot apply before he's 18.
So my birthday is today, Sandy. I just turned 18, January 8th, 2022. I can apply for benefits tomorrow or Monday.
Yeah, yes, you can.
Perfect. Can you clarify if students 18 plus program finishes in May, but he's still not 2022 until the end of July? Is he eligible to earn, I guess, to participate in Earn and Learn before he hits 22, or is he ineligible just as soon as the school year finishes?
As long as he is enrolled in a school, he is eligible. Now, if he's graduated, I don't know if he can be in summer Earn and Learn, but if he's not considered a student by definition, he would not be eligible.
You're caught up, Sandy.
Woo, 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 woo. All right, great questions, because this is kind of the brass ring of what I'm teaching you today, is that your students while in school need to be working because it's not going to affect their SSI check. Okay, they need to go to work. Okay. The second and the third one are kind of the same, maybe just a little bit different. And this one is called an impairment related work expense. So let's kind of break down that title. It's impairment related, so it's a disability related work expense. So what do you pay, or what does your student pay out of pocket related to his disability that helps him go to work? Okay, so that's the big question. So the sniff test is they pay for it out of their own pocket. You don't pay him back. VR doesn't pay him back. The school doesn't pay him back. He is paying for it out of his own pocket, and it is directly related to the disability. And if he doesn't have it, he's not going to work. So what are some examples? Maybe someone is incontinent and uses Depends, or maybe they have a catheter, and maybe or SSI doesn't pay for, Medicaid doesn't pay for something. So those out-of-pocket expenses will help. Maybe they cannot drive and they need to take a bus, or they need to have a parent drive them. And then they can have that, because it's not that they take a bus because their coworkers might take a bus, but they are not able to drive. Okay, so a transportation expense. So anything related to your disability that helps you go to work. Now, I'm going to tell you one of my wildest stories, so don't get wild on me, but I don't want you to just think equipment, medication. Okay, I don't want you to think just that. I don't want you to limit that, okay? Because I worked with a lady who had high anxiety. Just, she got stressed out super easy. And her friend took her and picked her up from work, okay? But she worked for a company that locked when she left. She couldn't wait inside. She had to wait outside. That caused her a lot of anxiety, right? And she lives in a metropolitan city. And so, you know, there's traffic, there's breakdown. I mean, there's a lot of reasons on why I might be late picking you up, right? And so by getting her a basic cell phone plan with a basic phone, you know, I didn't get her the i27 or whatever the latest one is, but I got her like one of those track phones from Walmart. So she could call her ride to see where she was, or the ride could call her to say, hey, I'm in traffic, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. It kind of helps her anxiety stay down, which she needs in order to go to work. Okay, so I'm not saying don't just think disability and equipment and supplies and this and that. Think about the person too. Okay, so I just want to throw that out there. Think about the person too. Now I'm moving to the next work incentive.
Sandy, I'm going to pause you on that last one.
I'm going to pause after blind work expense.
No, I was just going to say it could be something related to assistive technology as well.
Yes, it could be assistive technology. It could just, as long as you with a straight face can look at Social Security and say, yes, this is an out-of-pocket expense that no one's paying for but the student, and it is related to their disability because without it, they can't go to work. Yes, that answer is yes. Okay, can I go on now, Carla?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So the next one is very similar. This is called a blind work expense. Now, the difference with the blind work expense, first of all, let me explain blind. You have to be stat blind. And I don't know the numbers right now, but you know, you can't have diabetes, you can't have low vision, you have to be stat blind to get this work incentive. And this is the same exact work incentive. You have out-of-pocket expenses that you have to pay for that help you go to work. Okay, I have these expenses that I have to do so I can work. What didn't I say? I didn't say it had to be related to her blindness, did I? Because in this work incentive, it is just out-of-pocket expenses to help you go to work. It does not have to be related to her blindness. It can be, you know, maybe she has a cane or a seeing eye dog where she needs vet bills and dog food and leashes and, you know, pet care. And maybe she has the bells and whistles that help her work as a person who's blind. But it also could be her mandatory taxes. It could be her lunch because she works over lunch hour. It could be her having a front end job, so she might need to, you know, keep her hair up or get her teeth done, or it just has to be out-of-pocket expenses so she can work. It does not have to be related to blindness. Okay, that's a little mind-blowing, I know, and it's not. Hear me say, it is not because Social Security thinks people who are blind have the hardest time getting a job. Social Security is not saying that. When these work incentives, all these programs I'm talking to you about, when these work incentives were being developed, they had an advocacy group that was very strong. So they went in and they advocated for people who do have stat blind and got better accommodations than people who are not stat blind. That's all it is, better advocacy. Advocacy works. So that's blind work experience. The next one I'm going into is past, but I'm going to go ahead and pause here and see if there's any questions on the impairment related work expense or the blind work expense.
So let's see here. For pass, does it have to be a legal doc? Okay, you said you were going to get to that.
Pass is next. Pass is
okay,
next.
okay. High schools, okay, we already talked about that. Can you clarify if a student, we already did that one. My son will be 18 in March. Can he still attend the SEAL program when he graduates in May this year?
That's a school question. I don't know the requirements to participate in SEAL.
Okay, and so we can get you that answer from our, that's really a Texas Workforce Commission question.
Yeah,
that's a VR question.
Yeah,
so
that's a VR question, but if VR considers them a student and the school is providing the service, they should qualify for the student earned income exclusion as long as they meet the qualifications of a student.
Okay, if they are working student and receiving Social Security SSI benefits, are they required to keep the monthly max in their account below $2,000?
Yes, that's a resource limit. That has nothing to do with work. That's just, if you go over 2,000 and you keep it there, you're going to be over resources. And for every month you're over resources, you will not be eligible for your SSI check or your Medicaid. And if they don't catch it, remember I said they just do that annual bookkeeping. If they don't catch it, you're going to have a pretty good back payment.
Okay, that's it for the questions so far.
Okay, here I go to PASS, whoever is dying to talk about PASS. PASS is actually, next to student earned income exclusion, my next favorite work incentive, because so far I'm talking about your student going to get a job, right? A PASS says, okay, so you have a job at McDonald's, Sandy, but what do you want for a career? What do you want for a career? So let's say I want to be a janitor or an electrician or an HVAC person or a nurse or something like that, right? I have a dream. So Social Security has like a 14 or 15 page document that we fill out, and it's all about what is your vocational goal. Now, this is an SSI work incentive. However, you cannot set aside SSI in a PASS plan. You have to have other income. So you need to be working. You have child support. You have a Title II benefit. Your parents give you money. Grandma leaves you money. Remember I said set aside in a PASS. If somebody gives you $10,000 and you want to be a nurse, put it in a PASS plan. Pay for your nursing. Okay? Or if you go over excess resources, which would be the grandma leaves you money, okay? Because what it is you develop this plan and you say, this is my vocational goal. This is my disability. These are the steps that I have to do to become a nurse. Well, a nurse is going to require college. A nurse is going to require some practicum. A nurse is going to require some uniforms. A nurse is going to require some equipment. So there's expenses that go with that, okay? So you add up all your expenses and then you figure out, whoops, I went too far. Oh, what did I do? Oh my God, everybody shut your eyes because I need to fast forward because I don't know what I just did. I hit a wrong button. All right, we're almost there. Don't open your eyes. Okay, open your eyes. Okay. So I add up all my expenses on what it's going to take to be a nurse. And then let's say I can set aside $1,000 a month based on my earnings and some money set aside. And so I'm setting aside $1,000 a month in my PASS account. But to become a nurse, it's going to cost me $40,000. And I know it's more than that, so don't laugh, okay? Social Security wants to say, if it's reasonable or not. Is that a reasonable amount of time? Because if I'm spending $1,000 a month for $40,000 in 40 months, is that reasonable to become a nurse? The answer is yes, because you know there's a lot of college and there's a lot of practicum, because it's not when you graduate as a nurse, it's when you're actually a nurse, okay? But let's say it was $80,000 and I can set aside $500 a month in a PASS. Well, that PASS is going to go on forever. And they will say, I'm sorry, you can't afford it. That's not reasonable. But that's when you bring in VR to say, hey, will you pay for this? You know, can you cover 30,000 of these expenses so I can lower it so I can have a PASS? VR loves to do that stuff. So what I'm saying in a nutshell, and again, I'm doing a separate class, 3 hours just on PASS, so stay tuned. I'm just kind of giving you the highlights. What I'm saying is I have a goal. I have a vocational goal. This is my career. I have money to set aside in a PASS, or I can put money into an account every month from like my child support or my SSDI check under Title II. I can set aside money every month in a PASS, and I'm going to pay for these expenses. I agree to set aside this amount of money in a PASS every month, and I agree to only use that money to pay for expenses that you've approved in my PASS. And how long a PASS lasts really depends on what the goal is. Somebody who needs a college degree with some internships and stuff will last longer. I helped a young man become a janitor in the Odessa area, and not the Odessa area, in the Panhandle. And what he needed was a car. because he rode a bike. And anybody who's been in the panhandle of Texas knows in the winter it snows. So he didn't necessarily need anything but a car, insurance, and some help learning how to use a propane buffer or gas buffer. Okay. So his didn't need to last for 5 years. I think his lasted 2.5 years. He got a cherry red little car and got insurance and got trained on using this specific buffer, and he got a full-time job instantly. Before, he could only work when the road conditions were good enough to get him there safely and to get him there in time for when they needed him. He desperately needed a car. So we used a pass to write a car. My colleague, who I said was now using an ABLE account to buy his second van with accommodations, bought the first one using a pass plan. He used his earnings from Imagine Enterprises to set aside to buy his car. Okay, so you also can't be a person who has a lot of bills, because Social Security also makes sure you can still pay for your basic needs while you're setting aside a pass. So somebody who may be able to set aside $800 a month in pass, we may only set aside $5 because he has bills to pay. Everybody is different, and how long their pass lasts varies based on what their vocational goal is and how much money they can set aside. Okay, so please join me in the pass plan because it is pretty amazing. It's a 3-hour fun, because I love pass. I'll tell lots of stories about different passes I've written. And it's really a way of building a career for your child, including self-employment. Okay, so let's talk about insurance. So way back in the beginning, like 2 hours and 15 minutes ago, I said that when you have SSI in Texas, you automatically get Medicaid.
There. Yeah, but I don't have my camera
I
on.
can hear somebody.
Yes, we have a live mic. Can you make sure your mics are turned off? Thank you.
So I've said that about 5 times. With SSI, you get Medicaid. It's free and it's automatic. Okay. And as long as you have SSI, you have Medicaid. Okay. But here are some secrets that I just don't understand how many thousands of people I need to talk to before this secret gets out. So feel free to share this secret. Okay. The way Medicaid works when you're on SSI is, when you do that calculation, remember the -85 divided by 2 and subtracting all of those programs that we just discussed, the PASS, the IRWI, the student earned income exclusion, taking into consideration all of those things, -85 divided by 2 and these work incentive programs. And my SSI check still goes to 0, meaning when they do the math, I'm not getting an SSI check. And people are like, well, there goes your Medicaid too. Not only did you lose your SSI check, but you lost your Medicaid. That's not a true statement. I didn't put this name on here, so if you want to write it down or put it on your slide, it's called 1619B, 1619B. It's the name of a law, and what the law says is, when you do your calculation for work and your SSI check goes to 0, as long as your SSI check went to 0 because you're working, you are allowed to keep your Medicaid for free until you have countable gross earnings of $45,355 in 2022. So what I just said is, when your SSI check goes to 0 because of work, not because you got over resources or any other reason, it's only because you're working, you're allowed to keep your Medicaid for free until you have gross countable earnings above $45,355 in 2022. Okay, That is called 1619B, and it's a law. So my SSI check goes to zero. Who cares? I get to keep my Medicaid, and it keeps me eligible to go right back on my SSI check should something change in my employment. I'm just in a suspension status. I'm not terminated. So if my hours stop, my job stops, or my hours decrease, I go right back on without having to reapply. I'm not even terminated from SSI when my check goes to zero. I'm just in suspension status. When something changes, I go right back on. Now, is it automatic? No. Oh my goodness, no. So remember I said you get Medicaid because you're eligible for a Social Security benefit program. Social Security doesn't give you the Medicaid. Medicaid is ran by HHSC, Health and Human Services, okay? It's not a Social Security thing. So when I say, is it automatic? Well, maybe not so much, because Social Security and HHSC, their computers talk to each other. But if somebody doesn't push the button right, or somebody doesn't read their screen right, they will see that your earnings have taken your SSI check, go to zero, and stop your Medicaid. So you need to be talking to Social Security to make sure it was input into the computer correctly. And you need to talk to your HHSC worker to make sure that they've read it correctly. Okay. And you're asking for 1619B. So there might be a month or two when your SSI check goes to zero that you don't get Medicaid because these two entities, big mountains, are trying to work together to figure it out. However, it will get figured out, and they will go back and cover any Medicaid expenses that you incurred during the time they were figuring it out. It should be automatic. It just is not. There's just too much human error when two big entities have computer systems that talk to each other. All right, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to wrap it up after the next question section. So let's say this 45,000, what was it? Let me go back because they just changed it. I don't have it in my head. Let's say this $45,355 of countable income isn't enough because I earn more than that. So are they going to stop my Medicaid? Well, yes, they will, unless you make an appointment with Social Security. It is possible that if you're a high Medicaid user, you use Medicaid for a lot, that $45,000 wouldn't even cover your Medicaid expenses. That is not enough insurance for me to continue working. I'm just going to quit my job and go back on regular Medicaid so all of my stuff I need is paid for. We don't want anybody to do that because Social Security has this thing called an individualized threshold. They have a special calculation sheet that takes into consideration all of your itemized Medicaid expenses. So you can earn even more than that 45,000. We have a lady in the Lubbock area who has an individual threshold of well over $100,000. So she is on that free Medicaid, even though she's no longer getting an SSI check. She's in a suspension status for SSI. And she's keeping her Medicaid, even though her earnings are above that $45,000 threshold, because her Medicaid costs are higher than that. She was able to prove to Medicaid that she has high costs. So they developed her own threshold. That's her own personal threshold. That's why they call it an individualized threshold. And it's over $100,000. Okay, so the message here is even when you're on SSI and you work yourself to a zero cash benefit, you're only in suspension status for the cash benefit and you get to keep your Medicaid. It's almost impossible to lose Medicaid if you're working. And the reason you went to a zero SSI check is because you were working. All right, I'm going to stop right there and see if there's any questions.
No one has put, excuse me, no one has put anything in the chat.
Oh,
Thus
have I
far.
lost you? Somebody say hi so I know you're still awake. Is someone saying hi?
Someone said hi.
Oh,
Now,
good.
we did get one. Hold on, hold
Okay,
on.
good, because I got to make sure you're still with me. This is so hard to talk about Social Security for 3 hours.
All right, they're typing hi so quickly. I just want to make
Oh.
sure all the questions are going away. So, okay, so we see you and we're good. And we're thankful that you're still with us. So let's see. All right, I think you answered if they are working. Okay, hold on, you guys. Y'all are making the chat move. The more
Oh, I'm
you
sorry.
type.
Nobody else say hi. We know you're here.
All
Sorry.
right, let's see. Did you already answer the one, do these high cost LTSS through Medicaid waiver program, like specialized programs, specialized therapies through class?
Oh, I don't know that. I'm not, you would need to talk to a WIPA expert because I am the manager. I have not dealt with that question. Irma, are you still with us? Do you know that question? I think the answer is yes, they take into consideration your waiver costs, but I don't want to answer that. Can you put that as just a question, Carla, and we will get back to you.
Okay, all right, let me see. For the past, does it have to, okay, we already talked about that one. Whether it's a simple write-up plan for your child's future.
Yeah, no,
we
it's
did.
an actual document that I gave you the link to earlier in the class.
Someone said this is awesome. Thank you.
When
when you woke them up, they wanted to say that. Okay, and then I have one that says, I had a question earlier that I didn't hear an answer to. In a month, when a person receiving SSI gets a check from others, inheritance, birthday gifts, does that count as earned income against that benefit that month?
Yes, the month that they receive that other check, whatever it is, the first month they receive it, it's considered earnings. Anything remaining after that month is considered a resource.
Okay. If I heard you correctly, I think you said something about a job coach affecting benefits.
Yes, and that was under the impairment related work expense, okay? If you are paying, now if VR is paying for the job coach, then it's not an impairment related work expense. But if you have a job coach that you're paying for, you can deduct every hour that that job coach is with your student on the job. Now, when we talk about Title II, that's a better deal, but we're just talking about SSI today because I can't talk about both programs in 3 hours and do any credit to it. So it's only if the student is paying for the job coach.
Okay. I am caught up at this point.
Okay, so I need everybody again, just take a moment of silence, just kind of breathe, because what I'm going to do now is what's coming at you isn't going to follow a bunny trail. I try to make it as smooth and cohesive as possible, but there's just some things you need to know. So this, I'm going to age myself, but it's kind of like your David Letterman top 10 list, you know, of things that are important and things you need to be aware of. So the next one is just kind of FYI slides, and it doesn't really tell you a story like I've been telling you so far. So everybody just, I'm going to be quiet for like 30 seconds and then I'll start in on this. Okay, I'm getting ready to start now because each slide may not follow the next slide. Feel free to type in your questions as we go from slide to slide, okay? Because I don't want you to, because I'm not keeping you on like one thought process here. We're just kind of going through this, okay? So this is somebody who's on SSI, all right? I'm not talking about the Title II check. I'm talking about SSI, okay? When someone's on SSI, there's a 2-month delay based on when they earned the money and when the SSI check is affected, okay? So if I start a job in January, all right? Social Security won't adjust my SSI check until March. Let me say that a different way. The check I receive in January, even though I'm working, will be a full check because that check I receive in January was actually for what was happening in my life in November. Okay, so in January, I'm working and I'm still getting a full SSI check, and none of that is an overpayment because they're paying me for what I was doing 2 months ago. That's what my SSI check is based on. Okay, so when March comes, I still have my job, but my SSI check will be reduced based on how much I earned in January. Okay, it's just a 2-month delay. So the check I get in March represents what I earned in January. The reason I get a full check in January, even though I started working, is because that SSI check reflected what I was doing in November and I wasn't working. So I hope that's clear because I'm about to shift your brain, because this part I'm about to tell you is almost more important than that. Let's say I stop working in January. Okay, I'm not going to get my SSI check back until March. So January, February, I'm not working. I'm not getting a check. There's no money coming in. So when your child on SSI goes to work, you need to know 2 things. Number one, when they start working, it's going to take Social Security 2 months to adjust or lower their check, their SSI check. When they stop working, and this is so critical, it's going to take SSI 2 months to restart that check because they do everything in a 2-month delay. Very important. Very important. You know that. Okay. Now, write your questions for that because I'm really taking a left here. Okay. Because up to this point, we've been talking about SSI. For the next few slides, I'm going to be talking about that Title II umbrella, okay? Because you need to know this stuff. So as parents, if you or your spouse were to be deceased and you have a work history, or if you acquire your own disability, or if you retire. Okay, so I talked about retiring. I talked about one of you acquiring your own disability, or I talked about one of you passing away. If you were what's called an insured worker, meaning you paid in enough FICA tax that you would be eligible for a check, your adult child over the age of 18 will get a check off of your work history, as long as Social Security found that they too had a disability prior to the age of 22. Okay, so this childhood disability benefits, even though it's called childhood, it's a bad name because you don't get it unless you're over 18. Okay, so you're over the age of 18, you're found to have a disability prior to the age of 22, and you're single, and something happens that your parents either retire and start collecting a retirement check, your parent acquires a disability and starts getting their own disability check, or your parent passes away. Your child would then transition to childhood disability benefits, even if they were on SSI, because remember, SSI is paid by your tax dollars. And you have to take any other check before SSI, and someone paid in, you, the parent, paid into this. So your child would be transitioned to SSDI. Depending on how much that check is off of your work record, they could be what's called concurrent, meaning they receive both SSI and Title II. Or it could take them off of SSI, but they still get to keep their Medicaid under what's called the pickle, or under what's called a special Medicaid beneficiary. But just know that it is possible, as you guys maybe get near retirement age, or if someone passes away or acquires a disability, that you may get a letter once that spouse's paperwork is in to Social Security, that your adult child is now eligible for a record based off, or a paycheck based off your parent record. Okay, childhood disability benefits. I'm going to do one more or one or two more, and then I'm going to stop and take questions because this is kind of rapid fire. The other benefit under the umbrella was called Social Security Disability Income, SSDI. And that is when your student goes to work and pays their own FICA tax, and they become an eligible worker based on their own work record. Now, that's all about credits. And we had a question, so somebody was reading ahead or was really educated about these credits and, you know, age 24. If your student is under the age of 24, they only need 6 credits. They only need to pay in enough FICA tax to gain 6 credits before they're eligible based on their own work record. So then they would get a letter saying you're now eligible for SSDI. They could still be concurrent and probably will be, because someone just going to work for the first time won't have a Title II check large enough to kick them off of SSI. So your student would become concurrent, meaning they get SSI and now this SSDI check. So before you type, how do I get credits? I'm going to tell you. Okay, so in 2022, every time your student goes to work and grosses $1,510, that is 1 credit. That doesn't mean in a pay period. That just means, you know, let's say he's earning $500 a month, right? So in 3 months and 1 paycheck, he's going to earn a credit because he will have earned $1,510. 500, 500, 510, 1 credit. Okay. So when he has gross earnings of 1,510, that is 1 credit. You can earn up to 4 credits in a year. Okay. So if he does 1,510 4 times in 2022, he is coming out of 22 with 4 credits already. He only needs 6. So in 2023, at some point, he's going to earn that 6th credit and then would be eligible. So it doesn't take long for youth to become eligible for this. And by the way, this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing because with this, you get Medicare. So now you have Medicaid, Medicare, and you get 2 checks coming in. And yes, the amount of the SSDI check based on your own work record will reduce the amount of the SSI check, but you're still going to be better off because now you have 2 checks coming in, you have 2 insurances. So people are like, oh, I don't want my child to earn credits. I just want him to stay on SSI. No, that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. It's a good idea to get them on both benefits, especially if they're doing it on their own work record. Let's see. I already just said that. So that's just kind of, here's a summary of what I just kind of said about getting on your own work record pretty quick. Okay. So are there any questions before I move on? And I'm going to take a lot of questions here because I'm talking to you about so many things.
Yes, there were. Did you say earlier, though, that someone who qualifies for Title II benefits would start to get Medicare? Would there be a reason why someone who was dual enrolled would want to keep their Medicaid?
Yes. Yes. Number one, Medicare only pays for 80%. So you're going to have to get a supplement to cover it, to where Medicaid would cover what Medicare does not. So yes, you do want to have both insurances. Plus you can have an employer insurance too. I mean, it's really kind of a win-win-win.
CDB question.
Okay.
They must find / recognize the disability prior to 22, or they find that you have a disability prior to 22, even if the actual diagnosis wasn't until that 22nd birthday?
Ooh, golly, I've been talking for too long. I've got to go back and look at my own. Okay, found to have a disability prior to the age of 22. So no, on the 22nd birthday, if they were found to be disabled, they would not qualify for this benefit.
Okay.
You have to, Social Security is very precise in their language. Prior to the age of 22 means on their 22nd birthday. If it said, if they were found to have a disability within the age 22, then it would include 22, but it says prior to the age of 22.
So if my husband and I are retired by the time our son turns 18, he'll never receive or qualify for SSI, only childhood disability benefits?
Okay, hold on. That was a lot of stuff. So give it to me one at a time.
So if my husband and I are retired by the time our son turns 18, he'll never receive or qualify for SSI?
Okay, first of all, we're not talking about SSI because yes, he would qualify for SSI. We're talking about Title II and receiving childhood disability benefits. And if you retire, okay, and your child is 18, but he's already been found to have a disability, he will be eligible for CDB. What it's saying is, to get CDB, your child has to be over 18 and have a disability on record that occurred before he was 22. So if your child is 18 and already has a disability on record, he will get the CDB. Did that help?
We'll see if he or she responds. When are you eligible for SSDI?
Whenever you pay in your credits. So for instance, let's say I had a disability, right? So let's move on to the SSDI one. So I had a disability as a child, and let's say that I was on SSI. Well, when I was 14, I started babysitting. When I was 15, I detasseled corn and pulled weeds out of beans. I'm from Iowa, okay? I would have easily, even before I turned 18, paid in enough credits. I could have been found eligible at 15 based on my earnings. So there isn't an age group on when you can become eligible. I mean, an infant certainly would not become eligible because this is all about work earnings. It's about whenever I earn those 6 credits because I'm younger than 24. So I technically could have been eligible at 15.
Wendy has her hand up.
Oh, okay.
And Wendy, please feel free to come off mic and ask your question, please.
Thank you. I was the one that had the question about the disability over 18, but the disability wasn't identified until after 22. So I understood your answer, but then the way you answered a following question, in our situation, she had diagnoses prior to 22, and then after she turned 23, now they recognize that those weren't correct. It was actually autism. So she had a disorder, a disability, but they thought it was something else. So that just because she's turned over 22, that she just lost, that the ship has sailed. She missed the boat.
Yeah. Okay. So I no, don't hear me say what I told you was correct. Okay.
Okay.
Because Social Security looks at individual cases. And so what I heard you say to me is she had a diagnosis prior to the age of 22, but when she turned 23, that diagnosis changed. Is that correct?
Well, they looked at her profile and said, well, that's autism in girls, really is kind of what they did. So she had a developmental disability all along, but it wasn't recognized until she was a little bit older than that, 22. Like she had the disability, obviously, it wasn't gained, but they didn't find it. And I guess that was what I was trying to discriminate.
Yeah,
is
so when
that-
you say they didn't find it, but you said that it was on record, they just updated it with this new one. I'm trying to figure out, did she actually have a disability that was on her record?
She had multiple disabilities, but the developmental disability of autism wasn't recognized.
Yeah, I would think as long as she has a disability on record prior to 22, it doesn't matter what her final disability was. She just has to have a disability on record.
Okay.
I
Great.
can't guarantee it, but to me,
Right.
she had a disability prior to 22.
So it's worth pursuing just to see what they determine.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so I just have a few, oh, is there any more questions?
Yes, there
Oh.
are.
Ooh, that sounded ominous.
Because I
Okay.
didn't want you to go forward.
Okay,
So
I'm not-
someone who is on SSI can apply for SSDI once they get the 6 credits.
Oh, is that a question? Yes, they absolutely can. They can contact the local office to say, according to my records, I now have 6 credits. But Social Security actually does this very well and very timely, as long as everybody's reporting. As long as you're reporting your earnings, they will catch it. The computer will catch it and will put out a letter saying that you are now eligible. But if you think you're eligible and you're not getting the letter, by all means, call the local office.
After receiving 6 credits, do you apply for SSDI or do they notify you?
Yeah, that's kind of what I just said. If they
Right.
don't notify you and you think you have it, it's not going to hurt anybody to call your counselor and have them look into it.
Do the Title II programs have different benefits? For example, if my son qualified for SSDI based on his earnings, would there be a benefit to getting him on CDB after we retire? Or are the benefits the same? If he is on one, don't worry about qualification for the other Title II programs?
Okay, so I'm going to try to flesh this out. So whoever asks this question, please feel free to come off mic and clarify. So if I understand you right, this person is already on a Title II benefit. And let's say you retire and you're saying, is there any benefit for him getting another benefit? Because he already has a benefit and he already has Medicare. The answer to that is he will get both benefits, but it will never be more than what the highest of the 2 is. So let's say he's getting $500 based off of his own work record. You retire and your benefit check for him would be $1,200 because you worked more years. The highest he would get would be $1,200. So he gets 8 from his own work record. He would get 4 from you and he would get $1,200. And he would just get 1 Medicare. Hope that makes, and if I totally missed your question, feel free to come off mute and tell me.
Did that help you, Mr. or Mrs. Rosendale?
Yes, that was perfect. Thanks. Sounds like there is benefit because you might qualify for more under our
Yes. And you know how I learned that? I didn't learn that from my job. I learned that from when my dad passed, because I had to drive to Iowa from Texas. And when I got in the house, they were waiting for me because they knew I was the Social Security expert. And my mom said, so now do I get my retirement check and dad's? And so I had to tell my mom. It's like, no, Mom, you get both of them, but you're not going to get more than the highest of whichever one it was. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting, hi Mom, I'm home conversation. So, all right, any other questions?
That was it in the chat up to this point, Sandy.
Okay, you guys are amazing. You're one of my most favorite groups. I love it when there's questions and I love it when you're thinking. So, okay. So we're still in the proceed with caution and I'm kind of just throwing stuff out at you, okay? You want to make sure you have like an accordion folder, a file cabinet to where you're really keeping the correspondence that you receive and that you send to Social Security. Okay, proof always is going to fall on you. You have to prove it. Social Security doesn't have to prove anything. You never want to submit the originals. You never want to submit the originals. And some parents don't know this, but Social Security is required by law for anything you give them to give you a receipt. So get the receipt and staple it to whatever you submitted. You might have a file cabinet that you never use, but you might have a file cabinet that saves you. from an overpayment or something. So just make sure you're doing that. You're keeping copies of correspondence. You're not submitting the originals. You're getting a receipt and you're stapling it to whatever you submitted with that. Highly important. Okay. Just another caution about that $2,000 resource limit. Okay. If you get a windfall, make sure that you're spending it on things that are reasonable expenses. In other words, don't have mom drive you to work every day and give her $1,000. Okay. The expenses have to be reasonable. Try to create that ABLES account or the special needs trust as quickly as you can. Within 30 days would be great. And make sure that you understand that there is not an all-inclusive list of what resources count and don't count, but please go to this website to see what does and doesn't count specifically, okay? And when in doubt, just ask Social Security, okay? Or ask one of your benefits planners. You know, expect delay and surprises. For any of you that have already dealt with Social Security, you understand that they don't do anything fast, that you don't necessarily understand what they're asking for. So it can be very confusing, very frustrating, and very mind-numbing. Even for us who help people with their benefits, it can be mind-numbing to us. So here's the secret that I don't think I put on the PowerPoint, but I just thought of it. When you're on Social Security, you're going to get a lot of letters from Social Security. And you're not going to understand the majority of them because there's so much legal jumbo crap in them. Didn't mean to say crap, but it kind of is. So it's really hard to follow the letters. Before you open the envelope, I want you to look to say, did this come from Baltimore? Did this come from regional? Or did this come from the local office? That's very important. You keep the envelope so you know who sent it, because they might tell you you're no longer eligible, and this person might tell you that they're looking into it, and the other person might tell you that they're eligible. Because the federal, the regional, and the local offices can send very confusing letters. Always start with the local office. Always start with the local office. If you get something from regional or from federal that doesn't make sense, contact your counselor at Social Security and get clarification. Reach out to your WIPA. You know, the young man that we work with, I help him manage his benefits, and he gets letters all the time and he emails them to me. And, you know, he can get 2 letters in a week, one from federal and one from local, and they're saying 2 very opposite things. I don't want you to be surprised by that. And if you throw away the envelope, you may not know where the letter came from. So before you open the letter, look to see where it came from. Okay. When
Sandy, were those, you said I was going to put it in chat for them. Did this letter come from Baltimore regional office or federal office? Always keep up.
No, Baltimore is federal.
Okay.
Or our regional office, which for us would be Dallas. Did it come from the Dallas regional office, or did it come from your local office? Like, did it come from White Settlement? I don't know if White Settlement has an office, but I just know that's where the Education Service Center is. So a suburb of Dallas, because that's very important. And that way, when you work with a WIPA or with a professional that I'm going to direct you to, you'll be able to say, hey, I got this from federal, but I got this one from local. Can you help me understand what this means? Okay. Really, really confusing, really confusing. When your student gets a job, you always want to report the wages by the 6th of the following month. So if I work in January, to help avoid overpayments, I want to report by February 6th. If there's any changes to your job, you can report by February 6th, or you can just let them know, hey, I got laid off. Hey, I went full-time. When the change occurs, put it in writing, get a receipt, put it in your file. That way, when they still are reducing your check or not reducing your check, you have defense that I told you. I told you I went full-time. I told you I stopped working. It was on you to then change the check. It really does help prevent overpayments. Again, Social Security operates 60 months, 60 days behind, probably 60 months, 60 days in arrears. And any decision that they make up to the point that you apply, so you're not even on benefits yet, you're just applying, you can appeal any decision Social Security makes. So, you know, for an appeal, if you're applying, you can appeal by saying, well, I didn't give you the right information. Here's more information for you to consider. If you appeal an overpayment because you've reported and you've kept your file, you can appeal saying, here's my proof on why you're wrong. So appeal, 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 appeal. It's appealing. So before I wrap up, is there anything else?
Yes, we did have a couple of more questions that came
Okay.
through. Does my son
I'm
have?
going to take about 3 minutes of questions because I'm going to need about 7 minutes to wrap up.
Okay, so does my son have to requalify if we move to another state? It sounds like maybe yes for the Title 16 SSI, but maybe no for the federal Title II programs.
Do they have to reapply?
If we move to another
Yeah.
state.
I
Yes,
think you
because
have
Medicaid,
I was going to say you
Yeah.
do for Medicaid for
Medicaid.
sure, but SSI, Irma, do they have to reapply for SSI?
I don't think so, but for sure Medicaid.
Yeah, for sure Medicaid, because remember I said Medicaid is ran by the state. So if you move to a different state, you would have to reapply for Medicaid. The only thing I could think of is you might want to check in with your Social Security office when you move to a new state. Because like if you live in California, they don't have a food stamp program, but they increase the amount of your SSI to cover food stamps. They don't give you food stamps, they just add it to your SSI. So what I would do is if you move to a state and you're on SSI, I would reach out to the local office or reach out before you move, because I seriously can't think of too many reasons on why you would lose your SSI, but you definitely would lose your Medicaid because that's state by state. Okay, anything else?
How many years of records do we need to keep? Is it like tax returns where you can shred after 7 years?
I mean, I would think so. I mean, I've never been asked that question before, so Irma, feel free to jump in too. I mean, I know when we have grants, how long I can keep my information, and I know for the IRS, how long I need to keep my tax forms. I've never heard of a time frame for keeping SSI.
Pay stubs, I have had Social Security request pay stubs for a consumer 5 years later.
Okay.
I suggest always keep copies, put them in a thumb drive to save all that paper, so you don't have to save all the paperwork, but I suggest you keep all copies.
Great, thanks, Irma. I'm so glad you're on. She's my right and left hand, by the way, so
We've
could not
never-
do my job without her.
We've never been asked for receipts or any annual reconciliation. He started SSI just over 2 years ago. Should I reach out? He lives with us and I'm the representative payee.
So did you, when you became the representative payee and when he became eligible for SSI, was he over or under 18? And feel free to come off mic to answer this.
He was over 18.
Okay, so he was over 18. So you guys already established if he was paying his fair share, correct?
Right. It took some time, but yes.
Okay, and so was he working when you got on benefits or he was not working?
No, he's still just volunteering and learning. He's
Okay,
not
so,
been paid
yeah.
at all.
The reason they're not reconciling that is because there's been no change.
Okay.
If he were to get a job, then you would be reconciling those accounts.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yeah, and that is really a change in the last 2 or 3 years because of COVID. They had to figure out what they're not going to look at.
That's what I
because-
wondered. I thought, are they just holding it all till after COVID and I'm going to have an
Yeah,
avalanche?
well,
or what?
no, they're not holding it off until after COVID, but what they might do is when everybody, if everybody goes back to their office on a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 schedule, and they go back to lifting some of their COVID things they're kind of not looking at right now, they may ask you to come in for an annual reconciliation. And at that time, just say, hey, during these 3 years, was there any work you need to report?
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
And
Okay, I can do, oh. is
I was
there-
there's not another question, but maybe give someone an opportunity to come off mic instead of typing it in.
Yeah, can
Please
I
feel-
just, okay, can I just finish and then just write down your question? Because I want to just make sure I get through this.
Okay,
Okay, all right. So some of the highlights today is work in SSI is a great idea. Go to work when you're on SSI. There's a lot of bells and whistles when you turn 18 if you're on benefits or not, because remember, you can start applying at age 18 because parental income and resources go away. Student earned income exclusion should be used for every student with a disability on SSI on the face of this earth because it is an amazing work incentive. PASS is a good way of building a career. You can save more than $2,000 if you do it the right way. That's your PASS, that's your ABLE, that's your special needs trust. Remember that when your SSI check goes to zero, you keep your Medicaid and you're not terminated, you're suspended. Okay. You have the right to appeal. I'm just kind of highlighting now. Okay, so I'm going to take that question now because the rest is about VR. Okay, is there a question then, Carla? Or you can come off mic if you had a question, that person. How did we go from 31 to 61 people? I just looked up. Okay, I'm going to continue and then we'll just take questions at the end. Because VR is paying for this, I just want you to know that Imagine also works with VR and we do several different things. If you still have a student in school that is transition age youth, you can go to the VR, the website's right up there, and click on Start My VR, and you can get them enrolled in services. We offer pre-employment training classes. We do paid work experience with students. It's amazing. And even after graduation, if they open up for services, we can help with job placement, job coaching. We can give them classes on all of these topics that you see on your screen. And this is the gold ring right here. This is the links that you need to find the WIPA in your area. And if you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, either Imagine us, our company, is your WIPA, or Louisiana, sorry. Disability Rights out of New Orleans is the other WIPA for Texas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But you'll be able to go onto that site, you put in your zip code, and it will tell you who your WIPA is. If you cannot figure it out, my contact information is at the last slide. Just send me an email saying I can't figure out, I live in this county, who is my WIPA, and I will get that to you. Here's also a link to your local Social Security office and your local Medicaid office. And of course, you can always call 211. And then this is my information. Feel free to visit us. And one of the things I didn't say is if you have a student who's working, who's graduating, who you're very nervous about their benefits, you can also contact Imagine because we're an employment network, which means we provide services to people who work. That's separate and apart from VR and Social Security. Okay, I am done. Wow, you guys lasted 3 hours. Well, in 2 minutes, you guys have lasted 3 hours with me. I appreciate you guys so much. What are some final questions?
we had a couple of questions that came in, Sandy. Let's see here. I'm not sure if this was answered. When you say representative pay for finances, what does that mean? Also, does that involve a lawyer?
No. Representative payee is a Social Security term. You can have guardianship of your child, which is more of an all-encompassing classification. But under Social Security, when someone with a disability who is a minor is awarded a benefit, the parents are automatically put as their payee because they're a minor. As they transition into adulthood, meaning they're turning 18, there is a conversation that might occur with Social Security and you on if they need a representative payee or if they're going to be their own payee. And at that point, the parent can make a decision on if they want to be the representative payee or not. And you do not have to be the representative payee as long as you feel that you and your child can manage the benefit. Because being a representative payee is a lot of paperwork on your part, justifying it. Irma, do you have any other comments about the representative payee that I might have missed?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay.
All right, here's some more. I'm hearing how difficult the SSI application process is. One application varies for various programs, means a lot of questions aren't directly relevant, all very confusing. Do you recommend finding an advocate or person to help with the process? Where can we find that kind of help?
Yeah, now that's something that Imagine Enterprises cannot do because we are funded solely to help people get jobs who are on benefits. I mean, there probably is some place, I'm not sure. I'm happy to research that and send that out to you. Carla, if you would write that down. But the main thing is, well, there's 2 points right now. The first one is there are certain disabilities that Social Security automatically says, yes, that is a disability. That would be things like a very low IQ, Down syndrome. They're kind of leaving me right now. Schizophrenia, kind of the big 3 of the mental health world. So those are usually more approved quicker than something like autism. We talked about autism because there's so many varying degrees of how the autism affects the life. IDD is pretty much an in to get benefits. I'm hoping that there's somebody who could help you do it. I'm not sure, but I'm happy to look into it. The main thing is you want your records current from as many parties as you can and have the records be based on their worst day. I know I've said that before. The scary part to me about somebody applying for benefits is that there isn't really an interview with that person and their family. It is all paperwork. And it's not even done by Social Security. It's done by Disability Determination Services, which is a contract with like a VR agency in that state. They have a contract with Social Security. They have a Disability Determination Committee who makes the decisions. So the paperwork has to just be thorough. I think that Disability Determination Services would understand if something's not applicable to you, that you could put NA and it's not affecting. It's just, it doesn't apply to my child. But yeah, I don't know. Irma, have you ever heard of anybody who helps them apply?
I only know of one nonprofit in San Antonio. Other than that, there is nobody that I'm aware of.
Yeah, but we can check into it. We're not saying there isn't help, but I think it's not so hard as it is just cumbersome. There's just a lot of paperwork. It's just a very time-consuming process.
Well, I'm going to do assist by the time we come back together for our next series, I will definitely see if we have some additional resources that we can share about free resources that will assist families with applying. And I also saw in the chat where someone was asking about resources related to guardianship and or alternatives to guardianship.
That would be great.
Someone also asked if there was a similar entity in Ellis County. I'm assuming entity meaning like Imagine Enterprises or just what?
Yeah, every county in the nation, including the territories, has an assigned WIPA to them. We're all assigned areas. So every county is covered. And you said Ellis County. Let me just take a fast look at something here.
I'm writing that one as well, Sandy, because we have quite a few more, so we can make sure we get that information for the Ellis County WIPA person.
Yeah, and if you go to that WIPA link and put in your zip code, it will show you who it is.
All right. How are Imagine Enterprises and VR TWC connected? Well, April, they are a grantee. And so I'm going to let Sandy also explain about that.
Yeah, we are what's called a contractor with VR. We have to go through certain certification classes and then we sign a contract with them. And right now, Imagine Enterprises does benefits planning for individuals who are open with VR. They pay us to do that. We provide those pre-employment training service classes in classrooms in school districts around the state. We provide employment services, we provide self-employment services, and we provide vocational adjustment training. That's kind of a fancy way of saying getting ready for a job classes. And I'm sure I missed something, but we've got lots of slivers of payments. And we're also an employment network, which I brought up earlier, that helps people report their benefits, kind of gives them some protections from some of the laws as far as continuing disability reviews. And we have a relationship with VR that when they close a case, VR is required to close a case after 90 days of successful placement. They can't keep them open past 90 days, but the person might still need support, so they refer them to our employment network. So we provide them ongoing support.
All right, thank you, Sandy. And there was one more, but then some more stuff started coming in. Let's see. So if we are charging rent, we only have to have a written receipt and no contract, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Great information. Thank you guys also for the positive comments. I'm not intentionally skipping over those, but I'm just trying to go through the questions.
Yeah, that's
Is
fine, 'cause
there-
we only have 3 hours. So.
I know. Is there a reason to go through the hassle of applying to officially be the representative payee when the funds would be deposited into my son's account, which I can access anyway, because my name is on it too?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is no. Most representative payees for adults are really people who maybe have some emotional or mental health struggles, who would maybe not take care of business and not allow their family members access.
Okay. And then thank you to the families that were putting in some additional resources in the chat. I'm going to do my best to gather all of these in just one place for the families that are on today, and clearly mark what these people possibly do to assist families and share that. And that's it. You guys have been fabulous. We'll have a survey that I didn't get a chance to put together that I have to turn into Texas Workforce Commission. Simple 3 questions. We'll have that all ready to go for our next session. That is, I put some things in the chat. I hope you guys are able to see those. I put the registration. Please let other family members know how to register for this if they've missed this. This recording will be provided, but I'm going to drop it one more time. I'm going to add the registration link that you can share. There is the benefits planning link. I need to know what counties you live in. So when it's time to do those one-on-ones, we want to make sure that we are being fair and equitable in offering those opportunities in the various counties that Region 11 serves. And then last but not least, I dropped Sandy's contact information in the chat for you as well.
Can I interrupt you, Carla?
Yes.
'Cause I'm just looking at my final slide that I have up, and I did not put a period between Sandy and Smith. It's Sandy.Smith.
Okay.
So Carla has it correct in the chat room.
Okay. If it didn't have Collin County on the survey. No, ma'am, it didn't. I know that I have some of my Region 10 people that are joining, and I'm really sorry. We may have to try to figure out if there's something that is kind of close to where you might be able to come in. But yes, I do realize that I have some Region 10 folks on the call today, but the survey definitely is looking at the counties that are in Region 11 since we are sponsoring this. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. I know a lot of information, a lot of great information.
I can't believe you guys hung with me for 3 hours and even
They
3 hours and
absolutely-
8 minutes. Great.
They
team.
absolutely did. And stay tuned. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Great information.
Irma, thanks for being there. Bye. Bye, Carla.
Bye-bye.